Well, greetings, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Breakfast Club Jamboree. As you may have noticed, we were not on Saturday night as we normally are because yours truly had to go to had to go sounds like it was a bad thing, but it wasn't a bad thing. We had a family reunion with my other half's family, and that was great, but it was on a Saturday, and there's no way that I could say that my podcast was more important than a family reunion, since the family has not been together since the beginning of the pandemic, which I'm sure is true for a lot of viewers out there as well. So I see we got a few people watching at the moment. Other hosts are bound to come in any moment now and throughout the show, depending on how long we decide to stay on. Oh, here comes one now. I think it's one of my limey friends. Let's see here. Evil socialist. Who can this be? Hello. It is.
It is the evil socialist.
Uh-oh. I think you've got a sound problem there.
I have. What's going on?
It sounds like you're talking through a voice box.
Oh, that'll be because I am.
All right. There you go.
There you go. How's that?
Now, that sounds much more human and much less sort of like what's that movie called with the face mask? V is for Vendetta. Yeah. Oh no, I'm not thinking of V is for Vendetta. What's the other one? The face mask is Saw. That guy's got a voice.
Oh, Saw.
Yeah.
I was going for evil socialist. So.
Right. Yeah. I saw your moniker there, but I hadn't made the connection with the voice box, so I do apologize. But yeah,
That's fine.
Like that, so I couldn't really make it out. Anyway,
okay.
I'm glad you're here because obviously it's an abnormal time for the Breakfast Club Jamboree, but much more convenient for you, isn't it?
Much more convenient for me, yes.
Yeah.
I'd go so far as to say I like it.
Right. Well, this may or may not, and we will discuss this with others as they come in, but this may or may not be the last Jamboree until July, because I'm about to go to the UK to visit my family and so forth, and I'm going to be gone for most of June for that, and I'm very dubious as to whether or not I will be able or inclined to do the Jamborees while I'm there. So I'll see if someone else wants to host while I'm away. And we'll work that out when we get more people in the room. But yeah, I'm going. Okay. So I've been visiting my other half's family since the beginning of May, and now we're going to go. Well, at the end of this month, we're going to go to the UK, and because my other half and I, she's still never met my kids, and so that's kind of important, and.
It is, yeah.
And obviously my friends as well over there. And because when I first moved over to the United States, I still had a year's worth of rent on my lease. And because when I first moved over, we were pretty sure it was going to go, but just in case, I kept my flat in the UK, right? But obviously I haven't needed it. And my lease is now run out, so I need to go back to my flat and get my shit out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's practical things as well as sort of family things going on. What part of Britain do you live in? Are you in the south?
Yes, we are currently in Sussex. Yes, that's south of England.
Yes, I know where Sussex is.
Well, I was thinking more for the
right,
viewer.
Yeah. Of course.
It's sort of like, you got London here,
yeah,
and then Sussex is sort of like directly below it.
Right. Yeah. There's a town in Sussex I very much like called Chichester. It's in West Sussex, obviously, and
Yep.
Yeah, Chichester still got almost the whole wall around the city. I'm not sure how many British cities still have a wall around them like that.
I've driven into and round Chichester many times, and I don't recall ever seeing a wall.
Hang on.
To be honest with you.
No, there's a wall that goes all around the old town. It's an old flint wall. All the buildings there, all the old buildings are made out of flint, aren't they? And like the wall goes all the way around. around the old original town, I should say.
Yes, old Chichester. Yeah, you see that? I haven't ventured that far into Chichester.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Chichester.
Chichester.
So, Chichester.
Yeah.
Yes. Hang on.
Chister. Yeah. Like,
Yes. Yeah. As in Worcester.
Right. Yeah. Here comes Raven. Greetings,
Hey,
Raven.
Raven.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm okay.
Well, I hope I didn't get you up too early for a jamboree.
Nah, it's noon here, so it's not
Right,
so
right.
bad.
But it's Sunday though, so Sunday's hangover day, isn't it?
Nah, I got little kids.
Oh, of course, right. Yeah.
Is there
Well,
anybody in the chat, or are we all alone?
there's 5 viewers on the screen here. What it says, and we seem to have a bot in the chat.
Oh,
Yeah, but that's the only person who's actually managed to comment so far.
okay.
Yeah.
The wall? No, that's the rail line.
But anyways, so yeah, Rob, I was saying to Brian a moment ago that I'm going to be in the UK for most of June. So if people want to do the Jamboree without me, that's cool. But I might not be able to do it because of the vast time difference. Because I'll be on holiday. So unlike Brian, I will not be able to stay awake in the middle of the night and then sleep all day. Like when he stands up for our Saturday night Jamborees, sometimes you're up till 5 o'clock in the morning there, Brian.
Yeah.
And that's hardcore.
Well, that's vampire hours.
Right. Well, when I was living in the UK and hosting the Jamborees from there, I would stay up till sort of 3 or maybe 3:30, but that would be my limit, But we'd start them earlier back then as well for the same reason. So
Yeah, fair enough.
yeah. Anyway, so Rob, after the show, if you want to host Jamborees while I'm away, let me know, and I'll give you the details. All right.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway,
Responsibility.
yeah. Well, I'm not sure if Raven wants that responsibility. You've been there, done that already, I don't know.
My computer is being all laggy. Hang on a sec.
Okay.
What's the saying? With great content comes great responsibility.
Well, heavy is the head that wears the crown. That's what I say.
Yeah, there is that.
That's actually what Rob said to me before I left, when I started the new Breakfast Club. But yeah, because you were like, yeah, dude, good luck with that. At first, you're like, dude, you don't know. You're like, Paul, good luck. And at first it was like herding cats, you know what I mean? But
It is. It's very much what it's like.
yeah.
Well, starting off any live stream, live format like this, the first few weeks, it really is like herding cats because you've got a new format, you've got people whose chemistry hasn't settled down yet, you've got an audience that doesn't know what's quite coming their way yet. So you got all these balls
settle down between people. Why didn't I fucking know that?
Well, it happens naturally. I mean,
Right.
I don't know if either of you two remember the Friday fail, but that was quite a successful, long-running format like this that I had back in the day. And yeah, every Friday we just used to hang out like this and just talk shit and
Right.
laugh at people and swear at each other and get cross and make up and that was good. It was
That's got a
fun.
familiar ring to it. Well, I actually find these jamborees are easier to organize than having hosts post videos every day. And as Raven said to me on our very first time he joined us for the Jamboree, this was what the Breakfast Club was originally sort of intended to be, was a discussion. And doing it one day after the other can work, but it doesn't necessarily work as easily. And this is a natural, real discussion between people. And most of the time, I think they go pretty well.
One of the things that inspired the entire thing was the basically the conversations, the back and forths that John and Hank Green would have on their channel. Like every Tuesday, one of them would, put out a video and address it to the other.
Right.
And they would discuss whatever the topic was at the time or whatever, or change it completely. But that was kind of the inspiration.
Oh yeah, I'm not even familiar with that channel, so I didn't know. I just like the using the name of the channel, which has caused much confusion, but I still stick with it. Because that movie was really important to me when I was a young man, and I really saw into that movie and this whole idea that different people can still get along and still be different. That to me resonates every which way but loose. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I mean, I mentioned the Friday fail earlier, but we had one prime edict on that show, and that was regardless of what happened on air, when the show finished, we had this unspoken pact, this agreement that regardless, after the show, we would still be willing to go to a pub, sit down, and share a beer. What happens on the show stays on the show. You don't take it personal. You don't take umbrage. You just deal with it there and then. And when it's all over, it's over. It's as simple as that. And it kind of worked well.
Yeah, keep calm and carry on, right, Brian?
Exactly.
You know what?
Exactly.
I had seen those words written. I don't know where before I moved to the UK, and then living in the UK, you see them quite a lot, especially over the past sort of 15 years or so.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was like a wartime thing that got dredged back up or whatever.
Yep.
I think that's what happened. But then it was
like originally a wartime.
Keep calm and keep on drinking, or keep calm and do whatever, But the whole keep calm and carry on, I literally can't think of a better encapsulated way to describe the overall British character. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I can tell you exactly where it comes from. It comes from the Blitz years, right. World War II.
Yeah, because that's very good advice when you're under daily assault. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My kid's great grandmother was killed in a blitz, and my kid's grandmother had 4 sisters, and the 5 of them became evacuees from London because Dad obviously had to keep working, and Mom was dead. So they had a bomb drop right on their house, and the kids were in the tube, and Mom went back to get the kids a blanket, and that was it. So it's kind of, and my kid's grandfather fought in the war as well. So it's still really close by in terms of like historical memory,
Yeah. I mean, that sort of warfare is something that we in the old world, for want of a better term, are used to from predating the Vikings, predating the Romans, ballistas sending rocks into castles, and so that getting bombed,
right?
That's something that we know very intimately as a historically. Yeah, and it's kind of left its mark, but it's an experience that you guys haven't actually had yet. Except September 11.
Not on the mainland in an actual declared war.
Yeah, you haven't had bombs raining down on your cities.
War was when we fought y'all back in 1812 to 1814, and and during that war, the British managed to sack Washington D.C. for a short period of time.
But we didn't have flying machines, and we weren't dropping shit.
That's true. There were cannons, of course, but that war, as well as the original War of Independence, couldn't have been won without French assistance, and I think it's really ironic because that kind of gets left out of the narrative a lot. So
I mean, Green Machine makes a good point. The country hasn't had it, but the people in it are from all over. So yeah, that's fair enough. But I mean, once you've been there for a generation or two, it
agree.
kind of becomes diffused. Is that the right word?
Yeah, or just I think even one generation, if you haven't actually experienced it up close and personal, you might hear it from your parents a little bit. I don't know, but two generations definitely. It's just a history book thing by then, you know.
Yeah, I mean, look how easily that various politicians nowadays are trivializing the Holocaust.
Right.
Now, the only way that that can be done is because it didn't happen anywhere near your soil.
Right.
Yeah. And the people that remember it that are on your soil, they're few and far between now.
Yeah.
So.
And the whole never forget thing that gets passed down to the people who need to never forget, but the rest of us, you know, may or may not see that need. I mean, as you were just saying, I mean, recently, as you must know, Marjorie Taylor Greene said something stupid on Fox. I think it was she sort of compared the wearing masks to the Holocaust or something like that.
That's exactly what I was referring to.
Yeah, and that's profound trolling and gaslighting and well, maybe not gaslighting, but it's trolling in a profound way, and it's right out there in public, and that's her entire function. And I really am sick to death of the culture where outrage sells. I mean, I'm not saying it shouldn't sell, but it shouldn't be the #1 bestseller. Do you know what I mean?
It should sell newspapers. It shouldn't sell politicians.
Amen. And I say amen in deference to everybody who is watching this show who should be at church.
Well, I mean, you can appropriate that one, I'm sure.
Raven, I must say, you're looking more voluptuous than I remember.
Thank you. Yeah, things are changing.
Yeah, how's it going? Are you feeling all right with that?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I was doing while you guys were, I was preoccupied, but I was cleaning up. This is here. That is my
boombox. Oh.
So one of the things I've been doing recently here in this space is practicing. So
that's one heck of a toolkit.
Yeah, I was never a teenage girl, so I've got to do it now. So.
Well, I was a pretty boy back in the New Romantic days, and I was never very good at putting on my makeup at all, ever. You know,
yeah, but
I'm actually not
bad with eyeliner. You didn't need to be.
You know?
I'm actually not bad with eyeliner. One of the things I've been doing, I got lately, actually, a friend from YouTube, or now Facebook, she got me false eyelashes, and they're magnetic, so they stick to the magnetic eyeliner.
Oh wow!
So yesterday I was doing that. I was playing with these.
Phew. For a second there, I thought you were going to tell us you were going to have little strips of iron embedded in the tips of your eyelids.
So there's that, and then I went out last weekend, and I mean, so far, my experience as Raven out in the world has been positive. Has been very good.
Good.
It's going to be a rough week because I can't shave this week. I have to let my beard mustache grow in because on Wednesday I'm going for electrolysis. So,
is it too late to do any of the hormone things for hair softening and all of that?
well, I mean, what I'm on, because I'm on testosterone blocker and I'm on estrogen, that slows down body hair growth and facial hair, and it makes it softer. But yeah, I'm going on Wednesday, and they're just going to electrocute it all. So
okay.
I'll have to go for multiple sessions, but the first one is usually the most dramatic. So one by one, I got to zap it.
Asking for a friend here, But if a hair manages to survive, a hair follicle manages to survive 3 electrocutions,
Does it get to
does it
live?
follow death row rules?
No.
Okay.
No, I'll find a way to get rid of it.
Okay, so I think I am going to confess to a certain level of confusion, because I thought Raven was something you were sort of trying on, or was that just maybe last month, but now you're more comfortable and you're
Yeah,
I think I just was not caught up, as it
she's
were.
been she's been tried on.
Okay.
And I mean sat down with my mom the other day and we had a talk. Didn't really go great, but we had a talk. And yeah, it is what it is.
Sure.
You think she'll come round?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Eventually,
I saw the
I
post that you did about the mixed messages thing, and that's got to be a little bit. It's the same with me right now. There's no mixed message. I fully accept everything, but it might take practice, you know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the way I look is changing. I mean, that's something that you just mentioned before. I mean, the way I look, I mean, it's all slowly, it's all changing. I mean, it's, um, and that's going to help. I think the more I look like a she, the easier it'll be to switch to
Sure.
she. Um, and Raven is taking up more and more and more of my time, and taking up more space in my existence, in my life. And Rob is taking a smaller and smaller bit of it. So she's growing in strength.
In the past, you described yourself to me as gender fluid, and you sort of explained that you didn't really care about pronouns
Uh,
and so forth. Was that
I
then,
still don't really
and
care.
you still don't really care?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Here's the thing. I mean, the way I see pronouns is they're descriptors, and they're not so much descriptors that are meant for you to use about yourself. They're descriptors that other people use when discussing you.
Sure.
So what many people are going to consider the proper pronoun is going to be one that they feel comfortable with as far as how it describes you. So if someone's perception of me is he, it's going to make sense that they're going to use that as a pronoun. Why should I be mad at them for that? Why should I get upset because of their perception? Now, if somebody says he just because they want to be a dick and like the whole, you can't change your genders and blah 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 blah, all that nonsense, that's different. Then it's being used as a
And
weapon.
I'm
That I have a
and
problem
I'm
with.
guessing they get a punch in the throat for that.
Yeah, they might. I mean, I don't know. It hasn't happened yet. Like I said, my experience so far has been great. Um,
Well,
I
that's good.
mean, I go to a local consignment shop for clothing, because not sure of sizes and all that other stuff, and the fewer people that you have to deal with in public when you're technically cross-dressing, the fewer people that you have to deal with, the better, the easier. So there's a consignment shop that I go to. A woman is there, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and she knows me as Raven. That's the only name that she knows me by, and she's fantastic and helps me pick out clothing. And you know, um, she's fantastic. I went, had a fitting for a bra, my first bra that I bought myself. Um, and the woman there who gave me the fitting she was awesome. You know, um, So, I mean, I haven't had reason to really be upset. The most difficult thing has been my mom saying, "You'll always be my son." And I know where that comes from. It's not negative.
Translation is, you're always going to be my loving child, right?
Yeah,
But
that's
she
exactly
can't help but genderize it.
right. Right. So I mean, I am on trans Twitter, and I see the trans women on Twitter get all bent out of shape over chasers. I don't know if you guys know what chasers are. Guys
Nope.
that are really into trans women to the exclusion of everything else, to the point where it's like a fetish, and it's kind
Huh.
of creepy and gross. But I don't get upset about them. Everybody's entitled to their kink, you know. Um,
I can I can actually see it as being a sensible choice for some males. And bear with me for a second, and I'll explain why. And I may get some heat from the "you're not a real woman unless you've got a womb" type crowd.
Right.
But for young males, particularly, who aren't ready to start a family by accident, yeah, and for those that don't want a family, yeah, and for those that may have been burned by chicks that have tried the "well, I'll get him pregnant and then I've got him" trick, I can see that as being a very logical choice.
The accent that you use when you just said that was fantastic, by the way.
It was? Which one?
I'll get pregnant and get him.
Oh, well,
but
when I was in my 20s, I knew somebody who actually did that to a friend of mine.
yeah,
And
that's messed up.
the world's first 15-month pregnancy, and he didn't even fucking think about it.
That's funny.
Anyway,
So,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, Vegas.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, it is sensible. Why I'm mad at somebody who refers to me the way that they perceive me. That it doesn't make sense to be mad at that. But I see it every day. I see it all the time on trans Twitter. There are these very masculine trans women. And I mean, I know what that's like. I know what that's like. I understand. But I mean, they get all upset because they went to the deli and the guy behind the counter called them sir. But you've got short hair, you're bald right here, and you've got stubble. I'm sorry. It was the only logical choice for that person who doesn't know anything about you other than you just bought a pack of cigarettes. You know what I mean? There's no sense in getting upset about that. So I mean,
Yeah, it's not as though you can go on other visual clues either, like long hair, because that's a fashion choice.
So I mean, to get upset about that kind of stuff is stupid. My basic rule is if you're going to be an asshole, and I can normally can tell when somebody's being an asshole to you, that's upset. If it's used as an insult, if it's used as a weapon, then we got a problem. But if you honestly perceive me as she, awesome. If you honestly perceive me, also awesome. I'll even take they. That's fine. As long as it's your honest feeling, you're gonna get a.
I think that's a really
I
good
will.
look at it.
Sorry. I was just going to say, I will be completely upfront with you. It is going to take me a while to adjust to you from not being Rob, because I've
I
known
will
you as
say,
Rob for so
yeah, I know.
long.
Things myself. I'm like, do I look like that kind of guy?
No.
And it's like, well, guy, that's a gender. It's the wrong gender. But I mean,
Yeah.
those kinds of things are just kind of built into us from, indoctrination over time. These are things that I'm used to saying that mean anything. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I've done.
But I mean, Rob can be just as easily Robin, which is gender neutral these days.
For those of you who don't follow me on Facebook, the other day, my 3-year-old goes to preschool because he's autistic, so he goes for special needs class 4 hours a day, and he has a bus driver. It's actually a van that comes to the house, and the bus driver is a 60-something-year-old lesbian, older woman, and she thought I was a cisgendered woman. So she said, "I know you have a girlfriend, and I don't want a problem or anything, but you're a good-looking woman." And I was like, "Oh well,
Nice.
thank you." Okay, but she thought I was actually a female to male trans. She thought I was transgendering from female. So
Right.
that was wild.
That's interesting for sure. I just want to like to greet Michael. Hello, Michael. Welcome.
Hey.
Hi, everybody. Sorry I was late, but I woke up to Misty saying I didn't cook your eggs so that they wouldn't get cold. And I was like, well, priorities. I'm going to have breakfast.
Right. Breakfast is always a priority for sure.
So I enjoyed eggs with a copious amount of salsa on top. You know,
Salsa
yeah, Brian. So I'm not putting
on
milk
eggs.
in my tea.
What's that got to do with eggs?
I put milk in my tea. What's wrong with that?
You guys are sick.
Says Brian, who comes from the country where they have a thing called brown sauce. I mean, what flavor is brown sauce, Brian? Can you please tell me?
Brown.
Brown, right.
Yeah, it's brown.
But what flavor is it?
It's the same sort of flavor as a pickle. And by that I mean the brown pickle, not your pickled gherkin. It's like a look up Branson pickle on the internet.
Okay.
It tastes
what
like
that is.
that.
I know what
Only
that
in
is.
sauce. And here, ketchup, you'll find places where that's just called red sauce.
Right. But red sauce is not actually ketchup, is it? It's like synthetic ketchup.
Well, what ketchup or catsup? What I mean, make your mind up.
Yeah. The Green Machine says brown sauce is like red Kool-Aid. I'm not sure I believe that. I don't really like sauces and gravies and stuff on my food, so I never really got into the whole brown sauce on everything. But boy, I used to go to the kebab shops after the club every Saturday night, and people be loading their brown sauce on virtually everything they got.
Yeah, some people throw it around like ketchup, but brown pickle. There is a classic lunch that you can buy in pubs here that came straight out of the farmer's field. It's called a ploughman's lunch. And basically, it's a chunk of crusty bread with that's been chopped in half with butter, cheese, and pickle, that brown pickle. And it is absolutely delicious.
I'll take your word for it. It sounds
Well,
ghastly.
you're coming over. You're coming over. Try ploughman's.
All right, I will.
Hey, Michael.
But it's more of a fruity
Everything-
flavor than a
everything
beefy
okay at
flavor.
home? You good?
No, everything has not been okay at home.
I'm sorry to hear
But
that.
I've been throwing myself into my work and certifications, and if you haven't been watching my Facebook, I've had a very active month. I passed a lot of exams.
Yeah.
A whole ton of them.
Some for the third or fourth time.
Yeah, the jurisprudence exam.
Yeah.
And I've had to explain to people what that is. But basically, it's the exam that is the equivalent of the bar exam for lawyers. But every time you apply for a different license for mental health, you have to have taken it within the year. It's like just a little check to make sure that you are never going to sleep with your clients. None of that. No selling Avon or Girl Scout cookies to them, and no spreading gossip about their stories everywhere. You know, the basics of ethics. And
Right.
it's a open book test, this jurisprudence exam, and they give you like 2 months if you want to take that long to research everything, which to me scares me that people can't pass the test in an hour or two of just, maybe researching one or two things that they put on the test, because that means if it takes you a month to pass it, then you are not very jurisprude. If you can't figure it out in just a couple hours, all these questions that throw at you. It's like 45 questions that they had on the test. But yeah, it was the fourth time I had to pass it, and I calculated out that I'm gonna have to take it a fifth time.
Wow.
in 2 years when I want to apply for another license. I'm just working on the hours towards getting that license. And so I feel like it's overkill, really, to have to take this exam over and over again. Lawyers don't have to do this.
Right.
And it runs into another thing that I rail on, that I feel like it might become like a movement of my life. I might actually become a spokesperson for this. I feel like policemen should have licenses where we can report them the same as every other occupation, like electricians, like counselors like me, like nurses and doctors. I should be able to go on the state website and lodge a complaint against a specific police officer. And they're one of the few occupations that they don't get licensed that same way. You know, they do have their badge and their badge number, and you could go through the precinct and maybe lodge a complaint with their boss, and you know, it gets filed internally, and they don't do any public filings of all of the complaints someone has. If I were to get something on my license, if the board made a decision and said that I was sanctioned for 2 years and I had to have my practice monitored by a supervisor that they appoint, that would go on a public record forever. Like you click on any electrician's license, whoever burned down somebody's house, if he gets sanctioned by his board, there's a little thing on his record on his license that you look up publicly that says, click here to see the full court document.
Right.
And the whole thing is right there. On this date, he failed to do such and such, and it ended up in someone's house burning down. You can have that as a public thing that tells people, don't trust that motherfucker.
Right.
Right. But when police officers get fired, sometimes there's been cities where like the records were open, and certain organizations have been able to find these records of police officers when they get fired finally for cause, and they find that there's like 30 things in their past that would have led you to believe that yes, it was a no-brainer that this shit was going to happen again. And this was just the first public one, and that's why they got fired. It was because it caused a public stink. But this person had multiple complaints against them, and some of them were founded as true, and they didn't get fired all the way up until the really, really bad one that became public news and got into the news, you know?
I think the idea of having licensing for police officers is genius, and we've discussed in previous jamborees that I know you were in on, Michael, about how maybe it's like in Ireland, for example, you have to get a bachelor's degree, no, a 2-year degree in policing before you can become a police officer, and we've discussed how they need more education in a 6 weeks training camp or whatever the hell they go to. It might even be a month, I don't know, but they don't get a lot of training. But I think getting the education is only halfway there. I think, like you say, if they have a license and there's a system basically if they could lose the ability to be a cop by losing their license, then yeah, that makes way more sense.
I think there is there are parallels that, like, yes, they could be a cop, you know, like at the cadet level, you know, just with a 9-week training course that's like basic training for soldiers. You know, a soldier gets through basic training and they're considered, you know, a soldier. And then after like 13 months of being a soldier, they're considered a veteran with all the status and everything, that they can never not be called a veteran. You know, if somebody went through basic training in the Army and then did something heinous to get out, you know, in just a couple months, they can have that veteran status removed. But after 13 months, you're always a veteran.
Right.
Police have in their structure similar things where they get special training after their initial police academy, where they can be considered different levels of police officer. But some departments, especially the rural ones, don't.
Right. I got a question for you though. If they were to reduce, let's just say they decided, hey, we got this great idea to license cops, and so all the existing cops, would they have to be go through the training to retain their jobs, or would you just start licensing new cops? And after 15 years or whatever, most cops will have licenses.
So if it was a parallel to my job, which just underwent a lot of overhaul, because apparently when people got sent home for the pandemic, all the paper pushers in the state just started putting through all the changes that we've ever wanted to our profession, and started changing things up and changing up all the requirements. People who already had licenses and certifications, they got grandfathered in. So one of the certifications I have right now, it requires a bachelor's degree from here on out to have it. But anybody who had the certification prior, who doesn't have a bachelor's degree right now, still gets to hold it. So they got grandfathered in. So there are still people who have that certification who don't have that bachelor's and aren't required to get it because they're grandfathered in.
Right. Brian, did you have something you want me to put on screen?
Yeah, there was something I found
Here we
regards
go.
the whole cats up thing.
Oh, right.
I also want to say, especially weirdly in the presence of Raven, the term grandfathered in is in like statutes and everything. And it's so racist if you actually trace the roots of the term grandfathered in, because it has its roots in American slavery.
Really?
Because it's tied to like how people were considered a citizen and all that, and skin color, and it's written into credentialing laws. That term is there, and like, do you guys even realize what that means? You know?
I guess I didn't.
Yeah.
It has a slightly different etymology here, I believe, and it makes reference to the old boys club. If you were in a business, or your grandfather was in a business, then yeah, you kind of got in through the nepotism route.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nepotism is the. I'm stealing a quote from that miniseries, The Borgias. But the transfer of power from father to son is the oldest system of and most reliable system of transfer of power history's ever shown us. And reliable, maybe, in a sense that who's going to be the next one. But I don't agree with inherited power. So,
So there's a
Deep Ashtray.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Deep Ashtray asks a pertinent question in the ashtray there. Sorry, in the chat.
So my feeling on that is no. I mean, because there are a lot of terms or a lot of phrases in our American English that are very racist or have their roots in slavery. Lots of stuff. I mean, there's recently there's been a big deal about the term master bedroom, and how that is now being called bedroom one. We're doing bedroom one, bedroom two, bedroom refers to a master, owner of slaves. So in New Jersey, up until recently, we had a political office called freeholder, which was another old-timey racist term that actually came from England, actually, but
and refers to the holding of land.
Of land, yeah, which means you had to be white, basically.
I would say yes, they are racist.
Actually,
all
no.
these things. I would say they are racist, but they're on par with microaggressions. They're unknowingly racist.
Maybe. I mean,
a lot of people do things that are
if nobody
racist.
knows where the term originated from, though, if you have no idea what it originated from or what the actual original meaning was, it's not used in that way anymore. Well, then how would it still be racist?
Well, you can be unintentionally racist and still hurt people's feelings who actually know where the terms come from.
Yeah, and I would like to push back a little bit on the to own land, that meant you were white. No.
In the U.S., you can only own land. In the U.S.,
in the US,
yeah.
maybe, but
And
you
that's
said
why
it
it
in
was
relation
used
to
for
the UK.
the term originated in the UK and was used here in the U.S. For people who held office. That particular office, which was a freeholder, which means you had to be white. You had to
Yeah,
be a
originally
white
in
man.
America, you had
Okay.
to own land to vote.
Same here, and that's a big misunderstanding of the 1918 Emancipation Act. It didn't just allow women the right to vote; it allowed non-landed men to vote
Wow.
as well. Prior to that, you could only vote if you were a landholder. And that meant whether you were male, female, black, white, whatever. If you owned land, you could vote. End of
I'm not really
story.
up on the history of the 1918 Emancipation Proclamation in Britain, but I do know that that's right around the end of the First World War. And when I lived in the UK, Brian, I used to traipse all over the public footpaths that go across people's farmyards and all over the countryside in the southwest of England. And one of the things I found out as a result of that, because it was amazing to me as an American that you can walk on other people's land without their permission. You can just traipse right across it, but you have to
I'll
stay.
tell you where that stems from.
You have to stay to the public footpath, though. You can't just walk anywhere you want. But as long you can
Yeah.
cross people's property without their permission. And in America, you might get shot if you're on someone's property without their permission. But here's my thing. What I found out when I started rambling was that where it comes from is at the end of World War I, the British soldiers came back and were like, look, we just fought and lots of my friends died and we can't even walk across this country. We can't walk from one place to the other because every place in Britain is owned. And it's been owned for 10,000 years. You know what I mean? There's no such thing as, you know.
But it's actually a lot older than that.
Huh?
It's actually a lot older than that. Most of those footpaths have been in existence and in constant use since the Middle Ages.
I don't dispute the existence of the past, but what I'm saying is their right to walk on them freely without interruption from the landlords. That was a result of World War I. At least that's what I was told.
It may have been formalized in law then,
Right.
but practically speaking, you have always had the right to use public footpaths. It's known as a public right of way,
Yeah,
regardless of who owns the land.
I just want to address Vegas for a second. Vegas says, I think Paul's bit about trespassing is a misconception about the United States. In the late 19th century, it was perfectly in law. You were entitled to shoot someone if they trespassed on your property. That was justifiable homicide. Thank goodness the laws have moved on since then, but we have that heritage in our law. So, yeah.
I mean, it's possible to have a piece of property in the U.S. where people can walk across it because there's an easement. You know, where that's basically kind of written into the deed when you buy it is that there's this easement. And you know, a lot of sidewalks in front of people's houses are exactly that. You know, they own up to the curb, but there's that sidewalk, that public sidewalk. I know in some places you are responsible for cutting the grass on either side of the sidewalk because it's your property. And you're also responsible for shoveling the snow off the sidewalk in front of your house because it's your property. But on the other hand, anybody can use it. It's a public sidewalk. So.
Yeah. What I used to find amusing is occasionally you will get landowners who live in a nice little country cottage somewhere, let's just say in Dorset. And because it's relatively remote and it's not really close to the town. So if you decide to walk your dog 10 miles today and you happen to traipse past their cottage, they might give you some funny looks, right? And one of them, I stopped to talk to someone in such a situation. I just don't like people walking right past my windows. And I'm thinking, I live on a street. That happens every day where I live. Do you know what I mean? And people have just as much right to walk past my house as I had to walk past hers. But for some reason, because her house was remote, she didn't really want to accept my right to walk by it with my dogs. You know what I mean?
Yes, but what's normal for thee may be utterly alien to me.
Sure. I mean, I can respect people, wanting to live in a remote place. I kind of get it, sort of. Where I live is kind of out of the way right now, you know. And we do live on a private road as well, but people have even though it's a private road and you can't drive up it, you can still cycle up it and walk up it. You're just not supposed to drive up it, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah, it is.
So, related to the grandfather stuff, I've been in the past 6 months particularly interested in cryptocurrency, along with Brian's wife, and have been looking at statistics and charts and whatnot, but then applying some of that knowledge to social movements and social justice. And one of the things that I've realized, it's way off from the stock charts from like GameStop and the cryptocurrency and all that, and me looking into gambling addiction as an addiction counselor, supremely separated from that is this notion that you could apply some of these ideas to social justice movements as far as plotting likelihood of things. And one statement that I've come up with that we could create a whole movement on that is like just as incendiary as saying to conservative people that Black Lives Matter is trying to spread the notion that, Raven, you are never going to be a millionaire.
Yeah, no.
Brian, you are never going to be a millionaire.
Don't need to be. I already was.
Oh, you're never going to be a millionaire. And the reason why it, like, saying that to people, like, you have zero chance, right? It's akin to saying you're never going to be president. Like, statistically speaking, there can only be like one president at a time, right?
Right.
Only a few people in their lives are ever going to get there. You could say the same about senators. You're never going to be a senator, right? There's only like 100 of them at a time in the US, right? Think about how many actual millionaires and billionaires, right? You can look at someone and say, you're never going to be a billionaire. The chances of them getting to that level are the same, right? If we as liberal people could tell conservatives, you're never going to be a billionaire, quit voting like one day you're going to be there and these tax increases on billionaires are going to matter to you. You're part of the 99%. They're part of the 1% or less.
No, Michael, they're temporarily embarrassed billionaires.
Yeah, temporarily embarrassed billionaires, but like statistically speaking, they're never going to get there. So normalizing the phrase, you're never going to be a billionaire, and this tax increase is never going to affect you. Statistically speaking, as a whole lot, all of you people that are voting for conservatives that are, against these tax increases on the hyper rich, you're voting against your own interest. So if you're never going to be a billionaire, quit voting like you're going to be a billionaire. Let those people pay for your shit.
A lot of those
pay their fair share.
A lot of those people don't care that they're voting against their interest.
Yeah.
Some of them actually, honestly, seriously believe that they are voting that way to save the country from the evils of the left turning the country into some kind of Soviet style communist country, because they don't know what words mean, and they don't really have a lot of juice to power their thinking unit. But
so the way it's tied to the grandfather notion is that statistically speaking, if you were going to be a billionaire right now, you would already be a millionaire at least.
Right.
And the way that you would have gotten those millions, statistically speaking, 9 times out of 10, you inherited it.
Yep.
So if you're not a millionaire right now who got those millions by inheriting them, the likelihood of you ever being a billionaire is about the same odds as winning the lottery or becoming president or winning a Super Bowl as quarterback.
I'd like to push back a bit against that.
Go ahead.
Pushing that sort of paradigm into the public is very much going to have a knockdown effect, because the next rung down, realistically, you're saying to people by extrapolation, you're never going to have a job.
I have to push back on your pushback.
Yeah.
I have to push back on your pushback. One of the most beautiful things about Britain, in my opinion, as well as most of European countries that I'm acquainted with Europeans from, is that y'all don't expect to be billionaires.
No.
I mean, I don't know anybody. I've never met a German. I've known plenty of friends from Germany. I've never met a German who thinks, I want to be a millionaire someday. No, they want a comfortable life where their kids have a decent future. That's what they want. They don't want, I mean, there might obviously be some billionaire Germans I wouldn't know, but I mean, generally speaking, your average German person I've ever been aware of, and most British friends I've got, it doesn't even factor into their aspirations. Not just a billionaire, getting rich doesn't factor into their aspirations.
Yeah. The only people whose aspirations are pushing that way are already in the top 1%. They're the people that go to Eton. They're the people whose great-grandparents went to Eton. They are firmly part of the establishment. Other than that, you've got the occasional entrepreneur that makes it big, and you've got new wealth. And there was a lot of that happened in the 80s.
Sure. I want to bring up this comment by Mitch Crane. Sometimes I worry a little about increasing taxes on the rich on the off chance I might win the lottery. I know that's a joke, right? But here's the thing. Even if you win the lottery and you have to pay a lot of taxes, you'll still be rich. So this is the thing that I object to about rich people not wanting to pay taxes, because back in the 50s, taxes were 90% and we still had rich Americans, you know? So this idea that high taxes means you can't be rich is just a falsity.
When it comes to the lottery, if you pay the tax before winning, if you pay it on the actual ticket, then you've paid your taxes.
In Britain, you can do that. In America, they do it differently over here. What were you going to say, Raven?
Oh, they do?
Yeah, from World War II until the Reagan era, taxes were really, really high on the rich, and they were still rich after. The problem, and we've talked about this before. The problem with like going back to that kind of a thing and to taxing the rich, in that way, is that we aren't in that post-war high that we were on for many years. We don't make things anymore. We don't build things. We don't have the kind of economy or industry base that was needed to create the kind of jobs and wealth that we saw from the 40s until the 80s. This is very much now a service economy. I don't know how far we could get if we were to tax the rich the same way we did back then.
Well, I mean, even if we just tax the rich as much as we did when Reagan took office, that'd be something. I mean, the taxes for the richest people were in I think the high 60s or low 70% back then. And it's basically in that amount of time, it's been cut less than half, right? So, or about in half, I should say.
And you've got all the extra tax breaks as well.
Yeah. I mean, it was 90. I think the highest was like 91% in the mid 50s. And they kind of chopped it down little by little over time until it got to the point where pretty much the government was handing businesses money, instead of the other way around. So I mean, yeah, we could do with like a 50% over X number of dollars, whatever the floor ends up being. I think we would be all right with that, but we could never go back to I don't think we would survive if we went back to a 91%.
I just don't. I don't think the culture would ever accept it, even for the reasons Michael was mentioning a moment ago. That people have been sort of programmed to think, "Hey, maybe that'll be me someday," and I wouldn't want that to be me. It's interesting that the "I wouldn't want that to be me" works when it comes to money, but not so much with racism or social inequality in general. Do you know what I mean? There's a whole yeah, I go down that rabbit hole. Never mind. Forget that.
I feel like another way that you could ease people into that idea that they don't want it to be them that gets taxed that way. You could tell people that they kind of already are millionaires if they're earning the average wage. Because if you look at how much people make over their lifetime, which it gets calculated by this one little newsletter looking thing that you get from Social Security every year. Over your lifetime, you've made so much. Just the average wage over your lifetime is like 2 or 3 million. So you could show people that yes, over your lifetime you've been a millionaire, and that you've made this many millions, maybe 2 or 3, right? You just had to work the whole time to get it. But it's not like millionaires themselves don't do something to maintain their millions. They fight in order to maintain it. One way is through lobbying that their millions will, the income that they generate from them don't get taxed at the same rate as your work gets taxed. They have conversations just like this about how do we keep the poor people from taking our millions.
Right.
There is a figure, I forget the exact amount, but there is a figure at which you reach a point of, I'm going to call it singularity, where the earnings from interest alone are such that you will never be able to spend all of your money.
Right. The Saudi royal family hasn't spent the money they earned in the 60s yet.
Yeah.
For example.
And once you get to that point where your lump sum of money is just continually drawing money to itself and getting bigger, regardless of how much you spend, it gets to a point of critical mass where it's so big, you've got such a chunk that is not playing a part in the economy,
right,
that the economy has no option but to crash.
Well,
and this plays to some part to a response to what CRB Vegas say about at some point the left may come around to understand that the wealthy don't make their money through income. No, they make it through other people's income.
Right. What were you going to say, Michael?
So to add to that, not every, like the Saudi princes and all that, I don't know how generous they are with the extra income that they have from their already amassed wealth. But I do know endowments that are pretty, pretty philanthropic. The Harvard endowment, that fund pays for the tuition of everyone who goes to Harvard. If you get accepted into Harvard, you're not paying for your own education, which is something that like some parents might worry if their kid goes to Harvard, how are they ever going to pay for it? No, the acceptance to Harvard comes with paid tuition to Harvard, because the Harvard endowment is so large because of the alumni who have given to it, and the students over time, and the professors who work in the business department who've reinvested those donations from the alumni. They forever are gaining property and reinvesting in markets, just like the Mormon Church and the Catholic Church. They have more money than they can spend on their philanthropic efforts, and they have a narrow focus with their philanthropic efforts. They fund their research for their different departments for science, and they fund education for the students. All the tuition, all that. But one of the problems with things like endowments that get that to that size is money breeding its own money. The first people to market with that money that breeding its money are the ones who will win over time. The compounding interest problem is that if you start investing now, all those Saudi princes and all those Harvard endowments and all that who are already there, them getting this little bit of interest over time is so much larger that we're now in an economy where a savings account gives you less than like 0.0% interest. When I was a kid, a savings account would at least give you 2 or 3% interest.
Right.
Right. There's no value to saving your money in a savings account because of inflation. The buying power of that money is going to be less over time. You're basically losing money for trying to store it in the bank now.
Right.
And the reason why is because only the big players are making, all of that interest, and they're squeezing out all of the little guys. This generational wealth is actually taking away from everybody else's ability to get interest off of investments.
All right, I hate to interrupt. I have to go. If you guys are still on when I come back, I'll pop back on, but I got a message from my mom. She needs help with something, so I'll be the good daughter and run over there.
All right, Raven. We'll see you later.
Yeah.
Bye.
Ciao for now.
Well, I was going to say about what Brian was saying a moment ago about how it gets bigger and bigger, and it basically, I mean, we've discussed before in the Breakfast Club how, for capitalism to function properly, money needs to circulate, and if it's welling up in a particular non-circulatory way, that's a bit dangerous. But I mean, it's a bit misleading when people say, Jeff Bezos is worth 184 or whatever billion dollars it is now. He's made $34 billion since the pandemic started. And that's money growing money, as you were discussing a moment ago, right? Because here's the thing, 34 billion increase of wealth. Let me put it another way. If you had nothing and someone gave you $34 billion, you'd be in the top 20 richest people on the planet. Mm-hmm. And he was already the richest person on the planet and had that bump, right? But it's not, it's not that he has, I have no idea what his liquid assets might be, but basically most of his wealth is tied up in the value of things that he owns. And if that value goes down, his wealth goes down. It's not like he has the money, as it were. You know what I mean? Although he must have an awful lot of liquid cash. I wouldn't even like to speculate, but he's about to spend $500 million on a goddamn pair of yachts. So,
Well, unfortunately, nowadays, a lot of these big numbers are literally big numbers in a ledger. It's not actual, real, physical wealth, because those numbers in your ledger, the actual physical wealth behind it, is distributed elsewhere by the banks. Yeah. So, and yeah, just on the stock market, on a good day, your worth could jump, possibly double. And when you're talking billions, that's a lot of double.
Yeah.
But conversely, if the stock tanks, you can go from being a billionaire to being a hobo practically overnight.
Well, that's an interesting thing to contemplate, because when the stock market crashed in 1929, you had investors and financial people literally jumping out of high-rise buildings because they were over leveraged or whatever, and they had lost a lot of other people's money. Most of them hadn't lost their own money. They were responsible for other people's money, and they lost everything, right? I can't imagine we had the crash in 2008. I don't remember anybody jumping out of a building for that.
No,
they lost
because
millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
And then they got
and the
paid
reason
off
we didn't
for it.
see that, is because the government had to whip round all the taxpayers and said, "Hey, Mr. Bank that's just about to go under, here's a loan.
That
Pay
you
it
don't
back
have
to
pay
us.
off. Yeah.
Pay it back to us in 10 years, 20 years, when you're back on your feet, and you're not going to feel it. And meanwhile, we'll scrape it back from the taxpayer so that we're not out of pocket. And then what did the banks do? Go and pay it out in bonuses.
Yeah, that's right. They paid themselves, and they should have been. That I can't even believe, or I should find it harder to believe, I guess, that they didn't make it the law that they couldn't do that before that, or give the money conditional on that not happening or whatever. I mean, it was such a blatant robbery of the treasury. I don't even know
Yeah.
how to describe it.
It really was. It really was.
I will say that because of some of my goals in life, as far as just wanting to be philanthropic, it's going to take that level of greed for me to get there.
You'll
So
have to be greedy so you can give to other people.
yes. So, for instance, I would like to open my own treatment center, right? Say for addicts who hit rock bottom, right? And this would necessarily have to have temporary housing for them in the treatment program. Just a building with some beds and a little cafeteria in the bottom, and maybe just enough to do like 20 people at a time, right? Get them up off the streets and then give them enough time to go work temporary jobs, enough to get an apartment of their own, right? Little transitional treatment center, right? The amount of money it would take to buy a building like that would be that
Right.
amazing jump from where I am in income to being one of those people.
Right.
And I have done that realistic soul searching to know that like I can be in pursuit of that dream forever. And even with attempting to get bank loans to do it, I'm never going to qualify at my current level of income. Like my dream would just keep slipping away from me the longer I'm alive. And it's like I can't do something like that. Just to create a library, think about like the fact that some libraries exist. Each one of them has had to be created by a millionaire who endowed it, or a government that decided that's where we're going to have a library. We're going to build it right there for the city.
Sure.
No one who is at my level of employment can ever do that. And that really disturbs me at some level because I want some good things in this world. I want to be the change that I want to see,
Right.
but it's outside of my grasp because when I'm working, my money keeps on being worth less. My ability to pay for things year after year with that money keeps being less. My wages are stagnant, just like everybody else at my level of income. We haven't had a raise in decades,
Right.
versus the amount of money that millionaires make off of our work. The difference keeps on becoming bigger and bigger. We become more valuable to them because they keep on stacking more stacks of cash. But our wages seem to have been flatlined for decades. And the amount of our income that we have to pay just to live keeps becoming more of a portion of the money that we make.
Right.
We're living paycheck to paycheck, most of us.
Yes, but what you got to remember, Mike, is that those people that are providing the jobs wouldn't be able to continue providing the jobs if they're not able to pay their shareholders the dividends that they promised them last year when things were looking rosy.
Yeah,
Personally, I think that dividends should be tied to, workers' pay. If dividends go up, workers' pay should go up. I think that should just be like a regulation. But
I agree. I agree. I also think that predictions on next year's performance. When next year's performance doesn't actually manifest, and like you make 10 million instead of 20 million, then the dividends should reflect that, not the customers squeezed in order so that the AGM goes without the shareholders getting upset that they're only getting 10 quid of their share rather than 20.
Right. I don't know. I looked in recently. I looked into who owned Pfizer, right? I just out of curiosity, and the top 10 shareholders were all mutual funds, and mutual funds, of course, are owned by any number of different people. So you'd have to then look into all the different mutual funds to find out who owns Pfizer, you know, and it goes on. And I realized that a lot of stock, that's how it's spread out, is through mutual funds. And so people have shares and stuff, but like major ownerships, like in the case of Amazon with Jeff Bezos, that's kind of rare these days. They have like singular owners of major chunks. You know, people spread their risks out with mutual funds. Some serious typing going on there.
Sorry, that's probably me.
So I've been wondering, like, how do people ever achieve goals anymore that are philanthropic? And to me, it's a testament to the rise of websites like GoFundMe and Kickstarter, that in order to get anything done these days that is a big project, you know, your dream for your life's work, you basically have to amass thousands, if not a million people who all donate to your cause, you know. And sadly, some of those causes are life necessities, like the fact that we don't have universal health care, and some people's healthcare needs have created bills so large that there's no way they could ever pay for it, or even the co-pays after they have insurance pay for part of it. There's no way they can pay for it without having a GoFundMe. They would never on their own be able to pay for that stuff. And it really makes me think about the culture of GoFundMe and Kickstarter and a lot of things that, you know, a lot of projects that would benefit all people as a whole would never be done unless a million people all got together and decided, hey, that's a good idea.
Right.
You know, and each donated a little bit. Because one person can never really enact their good things anymore and have them take off. It's just impossible. And again, it's just statistically speaking impossible. You know, only 1 out of 1,000 good ideas like that is enacted by one person just working really hard at their goals. And that's, you know, the really bleak thing that I'd like to get across to a lot of those conservative people who think that they're just temporarily embarrassed millionaires is, you know, reality should set into you that, like, look around. Are you getting any closer to that goal that you have? Are any of your friends? You know, likely not.
Right. Well, I kind of think that, I mean, philanthropy definitely has its place. Like you were mentioning before about how alumni give a lot of endowments to universities to keep them rolling and whatever. You know, I have that. Certain universities like Washington University in St. Louis, for example, couldn't survive without those kinds of endowments. But I don't know. I don't want things to rely on philanthropy. I don't want to have to rely on the generosity of the wealthy. I would prefer it to all to be done socially through institutional, probably government, but not necessarily government. It could be charity-run programs. But I don't know. Because in order to get fantastically wealthy, it stands to reason that you have some level of ambition and therefore probably greed as well. And so philanthropy might be sort of counterintuitive. On the other hand, if you get obscenely wealthy, it's just not good form unless you're doing philanthropy. You know what I mean? Because it just looks bad.
Well, some of that philanthropy is not something that really benefits everyone. I might just have a different set of taste here, but if a philanthropist, if a millionaire, billionaire creates a museum for the display of Jackson Pollock paintings because that billionaire likes Jackson Pollock, is that a benefit to society?
Yes.
Fans of Jackson Pollock would say yes.
That's me.
But a person who's homeless, living on the street, who isn't even allowed in the museum because the museum guards would chase them away as loiterers, no. I like to say that people who are homeless living on the street don't give two shits about their golf game. And if a philanthropist were to donate to a city-owned golf course, even if it's open to the public, does a homeless person give two shits about how good their golf game is? They're never going to play golf.
Right.
I'll tell you what they will care about, though.
What's that?
Small inconvenient facts like the United States alone produces enough food to feed the entire world, and yet a lot of it gets destroyed because it can't be sold.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You Americans are being bled dry, paying 20, 30, 40 times the same amount for a drug because you're competing against yourselves,
right,
rather than having a single payer negotiate a price for your entire group.
Mm-hmm.
There's any number of things. Squeezing your young minds dry with debt that they'll carry for the majority of their life, just so that they can reach their academic potential.
That's one of the things that I would say it's hard for people to grasp that a lot of these things are intersectional, right? But everyone who works for the healthcare industry in a certain sector of it, like health insurance, if they believe that health insurance is helping to deliver the healthcare because they're streamlining the process somehow and making it smooth that people get access to their doctor, they're delusional, because we could do away with all of those health insurance companies. Many countries have.
Right.
And that those health insurance companies are actually parasitic on the cost of healthcare. They actually prevent a lot of people from being able to access healthcare because we don't have a single payer system. And there is this gap between those who can afford health insurance and those who can qualify for Medicaid. And there's this gap that a lot of my clients actually fall into, that when they're trying to pull themselves up out of poverty and out of homelessness, they reach this point where they no longer qualify for aid from any of the organizations that would give them help, but they don't have enough money to afford health insurance. So there's this gap where people have no health insurance, coming up right out of a period in their life where maybe they went 5-10 years without seeing a dentist, and they might have some cavities or need some dental work done in that, after coming out of that time, and they still can't afford it until they get to that point where they can afford it. And so that length of time it takes for them to get to the dentist, the problem's getting worse. And by the time they actually see the dentist, the only thing that's left to do is like yank some teeth.
Right.
And when I see that we can't just get them into the dentist right now because we don't have universal health care coverage, that makes me sick.
Yeah.
And the way that these people who work for the insurance companies think that their job is so essential that they must vote in a way that protects their job, because they would never vote for a politician that would be for universal health care because they are in this sector that would be affected by it. That makes me feel like, wow, they don't even know that they are in on the whole parasitic nature of the health insurance company. And it's a huge sector. They do employ hundreds of thousands of people that would be basically having to have their jobs transferred over to government jobs if it was universal health care. But a lot of them, if we had universal health care, would have to completely find a new job. And they'll see it as, I would lose my job. They don't see it as other jobs in the economy actually need them anyway. There's plenty of jobs. But the intersectional nature of this is such that if we weren't all paying for larger healthcare prices in America, we might have the money to put into our taxes to give universal basic income to people as well.
Right.
So maybe they wouldn't have to worry about a little bit of length of time without a job. Maybe they could actually take a vacation that was long enough for them to be able to enjoy it. Maybe they'd be able to have maternity leave and paternity.
Speaking as a country that has universal health care, the wonderful NHS that does a magnificent job, even though it's criminally underfunded, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have NHS dental care. Thanks to the encroachment of private health insurances over the last 20, 30 years, and specifically for what I want to say, private dental practice, I have a broken tooth, which I have been unable to find an NHS dentist to fix. In fact, I haven't been able to have an NHS dentist the entire 10 years I've lived here, because everybody is opting for private dental practice, and they have a quota of NHS patients that they must make room for. But everybody's filled that quota, and
Right.
you cannot get onto an NHS dentist.
When I lived in Cornwall, Brian, that was the problem in Cornwall. Cornwall's got like 1 million citizens, but only enough dentists for like 100,000 or something like that. And so you have the problem that you just described with the diminishing number of NHS dentists, compounded with the fact that the private practices. And when I lived in Penzance, you couldn't even get on a waiting list. The waiting lists were all full. So, yeah.
Yeah. I've got an anecdote that completely typifies the professional, in air quotes, attitude here. Now, when I lived in Worthing, I did have an NHS dentist, and I went to him for a filling, for some work done. And that felt a bit sharp, and a couple of years went on, and I needed a bit more work done, and I was working, and I thought, well, you know what? I'm just going to go. There's a private dentist literally just up the road from where I live. I can do it on the way to work, the way from work. I don't have to go into town. I went in there, and it was the same frickin' dentist. Yeah, the same guy. And I sat in his chair. He looked in my mouth, And the first thing he did was pour scorn on the work that he had done in his NHS practice.
I don't even have a word.
My response was to get up and say, that's your work. I'm out of here. Fuck off.
Excellent. Wow. Yeah. How much better? How much? I don't know. Universal healthcare. I'm a complete devotee. I was converted within 6 months of living in the UK. You know, because when I first moved over there, my wife was pregnant, and so we needed to see the doctor a lot. And it just blew my mind that I never had to sign anything or reach into my wallet or anything. I couldn't get my head around it for a long time, and I'm like, this is the best thing ever. Our second kid was born at home with NHS midwives in attendance, of course. And I don't even know how expensive a home birth must cost in America, but I'm thinking it's got to be upwards of 20 grand. You know?
Yeah, my son was a home birth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When it comes to things like, well, when it comes to its general operation, as I said at the start, the NHS does an absolutely bang up job with its limited resources and the fact that, you know, they're always having those resources cut because, you know, we can outsource this function of the hospital
Right.
to a private company and all this other shit. And
Well,
all that
yeah.
does basically is it brings down the wages within the hospital because the hospital is paying an agency the going rate, and the agency is then paying the actual workers a pittance of that growing rate.
Absolutely right. And I hate to be political, but yeah, in the Tories in the UK have had as their game plan to dismantle the NHS bit by bit ever since I moved over there in 1989, and it's been accelerated when Boris Johnson won his last majority because he's got a pretty sizable majority. And as you know very well, in parliamentary politics, if you got a 5-year window, the first 2 years you can pretty much do anything. And the opposition can't really challenge you or get out of your, you know, you can do anything, more or less.
Yeah, more or less.
And so that's what they've been doing. And basically right now, the only people who actually work for the NHS are the doctors and nurses, but the custodians and the administrative staff and the cleaners and the cooks and the gardeners. I mean, a hospital is literally a small community. You have any number, you know, plumbers, carpenters, electricians, everybody. They need
all
to be
outsourced.
Yeah, everybody. And so it's
most of them on 0-hour contracts, which
is
discussed the other
untenable.
week.
I again, that just testifies to the lack of a solid union movement. Because if unions were stronger, there would be no such thing as 0-hour contracts. You know.
Well, the doctors and nurses, they do have union representation.
And they still have 0-hour contracts?
No. Doctors and nurses don't. I'm talking about the support staff. Most of those are on 0-hour contracts.
Sure. No, the whole thing. The Tories have got this playbook, which is as old as time, as far as I could tell. But what they do is they underfund it on purpose, and then there's a crisis, and then people will say we need this crisis fixed, and the Tories will say the only thing that can fix this is the private sector. And that's how they privatized all the industries back in the 80s. You know, they ruined them on purpose and then said the private sector is the only way we can fix it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, you know? Yeah.
And the thing is, they've been dismantling the NHS for as long as you say. But the reason why it's been so difficult for them to do is because they cannot be seen to be doing it.
Right. It's insanely popular, the NHS.
Is the most popular institution that we have.
Yeah. And here's the thing about the NHS that I'm not sure very many people know, but even now, even without the fact that you know the cooks aren't employed by the NHS anymore, and the hospitals, like you say, they farm everything out except for the actual medical professionals. But even with just the medical professionals, the NHS is still the biggest employer in Britain. And that's the real
Mhm.
problem that the Tories have with it, because that's some serious union power, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
so
the teachers' union.
yeah,
Yeah. Now, there's another aspect of hospitals that I ran into a couple of years ago when I went to look into barometric hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And there is a hyperbaric unit down in Chichester. And it is funded, wholly funded by the Royal Navy. That whole department is funded by the Royal Navy. So you've got a lot of hospitals now go by the name teaching hospital. Yeah. And that is so that various businesses that supply equipment and educational establishments like the Royal School of Nursing and blah, blah,
sure.
blah, can actually save money on tuition.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's just got beyond it's out of hand at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I
I've said
mean,
it before, I'll say it again. If you want a viable country, as a government, you need to invest in two things: a healthy population and an educated population.
amen.
If you do that, then the rest will follow.
Hey, I want to shift a little bit. Welcome back, Raven, by the
I
way.
don't want to shift a little bit. I want to add to that.
Okay, add to it.
Okay, so when I think about education in America, there's a parallel to this because conservatives have torn down funding for education to the point where, especially inner city schools and inner city elementary schools and inner city high schools, are completely derided for the poor performance of students who go through them, right? But the whole reason why is because they're criminally underfunded, and so that fuels the image of private schools, which often have a religious overtone to them, where conservatives are all about let's give everyone vouchers so that they can attend those religious themed private schools, with religious principles and stuff. And so those students who leave the public schools are taking money from the public schools, right? Which makes them even more underfunded. So they're creating the problem that they're trying to attack, right? In order to have a different type of indoctrination put onto to students, basically. And I figured out one way of how to fix the inequalities that inner city youth experience because of this. Because one of the reasons why rural high schools, like and suburban high schools, are better than the inner city high schools is because we fund them by property tax. And so property tax is higher in the suburbs, or the money that it generates is higher in the suburbs than it is from the poor inner city places, right? So those high schools that people attend in the suburbs and other places, they're better funded because we use property tax to do that. So what I propose is, this is strange, a tax on tax, so that higher tax rate counties and higher tax rate communities would then have to put a portion of the tax that they raise into the lower funded schools to even the playing field.
That's a really interesting idea.
But literally, it is a tax on tax, because some of the local taxes that can be raised in some communities would fund their schools better. And I want to even the playing field for students so that we can't keep perpetuating the generational gap between white people and people of color in inner city places, and basically keep perpetuating our the racist nature of our country through our education system. So yeah, I'm proposing a tax on tax, not a tax. A tax, like a tax on tax is a conservative thing, but like a tax on tax. Unfortunately, Paul and Brian, I think they both took bathroom breaks, so it's just you and me, Raven.
I'm back.
Okay. He was just refilling his tea.
There is
No, I was taking my medication.
there's a comment here that the left has a lot of solutions that involve printing money and not paying for shit. Yeah, that's bullshit. I hate every time I see that, it just annoys the fuck out of me. So no. Nonsense,
Yeah.
bullshit. Please don't keep saying
I'm
that
gonna
shit.
I'm gonna take this opportunity because Joe isn't here, and I know it winds him up like
I think
a
Joe is
fucking
here.
typhoon.
Joe is here.
Well, let me say
just
this
see him.
before he comes into the room.
He can still hear you.
Quantica. He'll just have to shout at me when he gets in the room. Quantica, you keep on talking about the left this, the left that, the left whatever. From my perspective, both the Democrats and the Republicans are right of center. You're both capitalistic leaning and you're right of center. So get off it with the left versus right fucking bullshit rhetoric.
Right. I mean, and it's nonsense. I mean, Vegas said the right and the left both like spending money. Nobody said anything about spending money. Hey, Joe,
Hello.
the issue is, does the left print money in order to spend it? And that's absolute fucking bullshit. They're not just printing money because they want a program. They tax people for that. That's not the same as printing money.
Yeah.
So shove that shit up your ass. It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah,
Brian,
and
speaking of the devil when he appeared.
and I actually have two things to
I
say.
know.
One, actually, three things to say. Two of them are to Brian. As I've said before, bringing up the fact that our left wing is further to the right than your left wing is. You've said it 183 times. It's not necessary to keep bringing up. Secondly, I've also pointed out several times that it's not entirely true. Because if you want to say capitalistic, well, I don't see Labor Party trying to grab the means of production and renationalizing everything. They're not. So British Labor's not doing that either. So
British Labour is definitely to the right of what it used to be. There's no doubt about it.
So
you can thank Tony Blair for that.
Yeah,
you can thank Tony Blair for that.
That's fine, and that's fine. But now to Quantica's bullshit point, though, to continue what Rob said, see, actually, given the fact that if you think about what the right will always accuse the left of being tax and spend. Okay, all right, as Rob said, we tax people to get the money to spend the things. We're not actually out there to break the deficit. If you look historically over the last 50 years, it's Republicans and not Democrats that have ballooned the debt and the deficit. Third, what the Republicans are borrow and spend. So they like to spend money too, but they borrow. This way they don't raise taxes. They can say, "See, we didn't raise taxes, or we lowered taxes and blew even bigger holes into the deficit and into the debt." And then they leave. So they basically this way they can. Give out what they want to give out, and then when Democrats come in and have to pick up the pieces, every fucking time. So yeah, this idea that it's the left is doing this is complete and utter horseshit. To glom onto Raven's metaphor, which is true. So I'd rather have somebody who actually tries to collect the revenue necessary to spend the investment, and that's the other thing too, because to me there's a big difference between spending $1 trillion in investment in infrastructure and things that are actually going to grow the economy and make things better for everybody versus blowing $2 trillion on fucking wars that didn't need to be fought.
Right.
Just as a counter pushback, it's lovely to see you, Joe, by the way. I was deliberately trying to avoid a confrontation with you on that because I know you've heard it.
Yeah.
Let me speak for a second, please. I know you've heard it hundreds of times, and yes, I am going to say it again, but I will try and keep it out of your hearing. But the reason why I say it is because so often these things are framed from the right as being left, hard left, veering on communism, which
Right.
is not left as I understand it.
Well,
Yeah, it's like saying corporatism is inherent. Is what's the word? It's synonymous with capitalism. It's not.
no,
Yeah.
and I agree with you there. I think my point is that, and I agree, man. And the thing is that whether or not we point that out, they will continue to misuse those terms because they don't understand them. And secondly,
Yeah.
saying left in this country, saying left relative when we're talking about U.S. politics, we're talking about the left as it exists or to whatever extent it exists in the United States, is accurate to say. Whether it is on the actual continuum of the world is not relevant to the discussion ever.
True, but increasingly the U.S. conversation is becoming a global conversation. And that is what worries those like myself that believe capitalism and socialism exist best when they are keeping checks and balances on each other. The true centrist position between left, socialism, and right, capitalism.
Oh,
I disagree that capitalism is necessary a right word. It's been exploited by people on the right in a different way, but I wouldn't necessarily call capitalism right or conservative. I mean, there's always been a merchant class in the world, which precedes what we now call capitalism. You know what I mean?
Ben and Jerry's. I mean, Ben and Jerry's is about as far left as you can get. They're cast as fuck.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing that they're not diametrically opposed to one another.
No, they're not. They're complementary to each other, which is kind of my entire point.
Oh,
and yet the conversation is always framed as though they're pitted against each other. And that's bullshit.
Oh, and I completely agree with you. And as I've said many times, basically, the market-based economy is best for growing wealth, and a social democratic government is best at regulating to make sure that wealth is equitably distributed.
Yeah, and that you have common infrastructure.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, and people have necessities.
That's right, because that's the thing, and actually, as I try to point out to many, so-called, fans of what they think capitalism is, that infrastructure that you refer to, that's good for the capitalists too. In fact, they benefit by more than anybody else. The ability to get goods and services, first raw materials to manufacturing points, and then get their finished goods and materials out to distribution. Who benefits by that more than the people that are buying and selling all the stuff?
Yeah, I agree. And on that note, and to keep this as a nice 2x2 frame, because it looks all squiffy now on the screen, I'm going to take my leave of you and disappear before my medications start making me a bit doolally.
Uh-oh.
So,
I
will
Thanks for stopping
catch
in,
you
Brian.
later. Ciao for now.
Whew. I don't know. I want to change the subject. Because this whole thing that was going on in the chat section over there about the left versus right thing.
Yeah.
Nonsense.
It
doesn't quite make it.
So
anyway,
I shared a link. I shared a link in the private chat earlier.
Oh, is it okay if I put it on? I wasn't sure if it was for us or if it was for them.
Can you please? So for those of you who are apparently leftists who want to blow some money, you can donate to this link. By the way, Vegas, thank you. So anyway, Paul's gonna put it in.
Hang on. I think I just did it. Hang on.
He's struggling.
Yeah, I am. There it goes. No, shit. Delete
No,
comment.
that's not it.
That's not it.
That's not it.
I can't block myself. I can't delete it.
Shit.
Fuck. Oh, okay, it's gone. I don't know what happened. All right, let me try that again. I don't know what the fuck just happened. Let me try that again.
No, it's true. You are not a leftist, Vegas, but
Oh,
apparently,
okay.
apparently you thought it was a worthy cause. So, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna try it now. This is me being a Luddite, friends. That's just what it is. All right.
I love when people who don't know what I do for a living call me a Luddite because I don't like their misapplication of technology. And it's like, shit, dude, I do more in any given day on with technology than most people do all year. I mean, it's like, oh, I know how to use my phone. Yeah, that's nice.
When I clicked it, that's where it took me. I couldn't copy the damn link for some reason, so I went to the site and copied the link, and that's what I got, Raven.
There you go.
I'm not sure if people can click that or not, or if they have to copy it and then paste it, but it'll work either way. I hope.
Great. Yeah, it works.
Yeah, cool.
One of the things that I have a benefit of in my job, because I see hundreds of people a week, is sometimes I help people in such a way that they're thankful for the help I give them, and I get thank you cards left for me. If someone is leaving my therapy, that maybe they were just mandated to for a number of weeks so that they could get their driver's license back. They didn't want to be there in the first place, but over the course of that therapy, they got something out of it. And I might get left a thank you card. I might get left cookies, something like that. I love cookies. There's a certain limit to how much I'm allowed to accept from a client.
Like no pallets of cookies.
Yeah, over about the $20 limit, then I can't accept it really ethically.
Does scented underwear come below $20?
Yeah, that's a whole other deal. That's a dual relationship.
It depends on how you're spelling cum.
Yeah, but I had somebody leave without my ability to guard my desk because we're in a pandemic and I work from home, and my work desk is still at my place of employment, and they've left things on my desk, and one of the things that got left was a Venus flytrap. And it was probably under the $20 limit, but it was just a little encapsulated. It's a little biome that keeps the humidity in, because you can see the humidity build up on it, like
humidity.
Yeah, like how a frozen glass of Coke collects the humidity on the outside.
Condensation, yeah.
Condensation. You can see the condensation on the inside at all times, because this tropical plant just keeps it humid in this little biome. And I've been watering it, and it's fine, but I get these little gifts all the time, and I get told to my face that I've been helping people. But then on YouTube, I'll make a video, and I will get called a Luddite or told that I am ridiculously out of order for the things that I'm saying. And this whole intersectionality of all the different things that I say to people that bring about good outcomes, I see it all as being more and more connected, and just the mentality of some of the things that we've been talking about, it leads to poor mental health.
Mm.
And if you look at those countries that have the highest mental health, happiness index, there's a whole index you can look up for happiness, and look at how many social programs those countries have.
Right.
There's a direct correlation to it. So all of these things being connected, I find it hilarious that the conservative people who post on in the comments of my videos are always talking to me like I'm an idiot.
Yeah. Oh well, that's the thing. I mean, it's this hyper individualism, and what gets me the most about it is basically people who live in a society. We're all standing on the backs of the people who built the stuff that's here, and then people who think, oh, I did it all myself. They want to believe that that they did it all themselves, and they don't need society. But you never see at least in most cases, you don't see them ever like really go completely, out in the middle of nowhere. That that xenophobic, as I said, off the grid, middle of nowhere, not near any people. Very few people can actually live like that. And even the ones that are out there, they have manufactured goods that probably couldn't exist in a society, if there was no actual society, if they had that true anarchy, that that libertarian anarchy that they think they want. So they're so full of shit. And even as far as the happiness goes, and this is a slight departure, but I'm in a group on Facebook for this the game Twilight 2000. It's like a post-apocalyptic military RPG.
It has nothing to do with the Twilight books, does it?
No, not at all. Yeah. But I'm reading an exact quote of what the person said. I'm glad that this Twilight group isn't full of homo and transphobia. That's it. Basically saying, hey, you guys are a bunch of good guys that don't act like transphobes or homophobes. And the shitstorm that's cropped up by the number of people angry. And so I did, it's like, OP, I'm glad you guys aren't a bunch of shitbags. And then I put the next line, shitbags, triggered. And again, it's the same people. It's the same fucking people that we're talking about. Bigotry is not the sole purview of the right wing, but the big bigotry seems to live there.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, just mentioning that certain people exist, I mean, that's really what it is. It was just like we were in this group, we were playing this game, we were having our discussions without ever talking about that stuff, and we were all happy. Now that you're thanking us for not being dickheads, well, now we're pissed off and we're going to be dickheads.
Right.
That's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, I totally believe that. I've seen that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Literally giving people a compliment. They come into this group. You guys are all wonderful people. How fucking dare you? We're all, And people were saying it wasn't relevant. It wasn't relevant because it wasn't about the game. I'm like, it's about the group. It's literally a commentary on the fucking group. How is something a commentary on the fucking group not relevant to the fucking group? So one of the assholes, one of the shitbags, who was telling us that it wasn't relevant and posting shit barn shit, he messaged me that he got banned from the group and he's all upset now. And so I said, oh, I guess they disagreed with your assessment on how the rules are interpreted. Bye. I mean, what the fuck? But it's just like, we've all seen, there'll be an ad. I saw this one ad about a year ago. It was two women. Now, it didn't say they were lesbians. It didn't say they were a couple. It's implied, but they could be sisters. They could be friends. They're not holding hands. They're not kissing. They're not, tonguing each other. Just two women. This is for Amtrak or something like that. And the rash of shit. Oh, you're shoving it down our throats. No. If we were shoving gay shit down your throat, you would be a dick in your mouth right now. So shut the fuck up. But that's what we're dealing with.
I always got a kick out of that. Always that you're shoving it in our faces or shoving it down our throats, and it's just like, wait a minute. But if you're not straight, and you look at the rest of the world, then straight people are constantly 24 hours a day shoving shit in your face.
Bingo.
Constantly. So I mean, it's just.
I was just in Michael's last night, the art store, and I do shop at Michael's and Joanne rather than Hobby Lobby because of my religious identity and politics. But in Michael's, I was so happy to see that they had it was just a kiosk. It was just like a 10-foot square thing in the center aisle, but it was all dedicated to Pride Fest. Maybe pandering, but they had rainbow colored buttons. They had projects that were like you could paint your own Pride sign that said all people are welcome here, and it had knee-high socks of rainbow colors and stuff. And I bought my niece, who just came out, a couple things from this thing. And I was just like, this kiosk, this little stand would never exist in Hobby Lobby. and I was just so happy that I shopped where I shopped. You know, I know that it only probably comes out like once a year because it's right before Pride Fest that they're trying to get to that market, but just I was happy to see it, and if anyone were offended by the fact that it existed in the in the Michael store, and if they were of the mindset, oh, you're shoving it down our throats by putting a little stand that they don't have to shop from, and it's like completely like where the seasonal wrapping paper would be otherwise, and it's just a seasonal thing. If they were to ever think you're shoving it down our throats, I'm like, go shop at Hobby Lobby, unless it's Sunday, in which case
you can't.
Screwed.
That's really funny. I was gone for so long that Hobby Lobby came up while I was abroad. So I've never been to a Hobby Lobby. I don't even know what they do. I just remember there was some, must be over 10 years ago now, because they did something. I think it was about to do with Planned Parenthood or something, wasn't it? Yeah. I can't remember. It was a long time ago.
If you think about the difference between Kmart, Walmart, Target, Shopko, and the likes of those big box stores.
Okay, I've been in a Target, and I've been in a Kmart, so yeah.
Yeah, and a Walmart, right?
Never
Those
been in a Walmart.
Stores, they basically all sell the same things.
Right.
Hobby Lobby, Michaels, and Joann are basically all the same store. They are for crafters and hobbyists and artists, and
hence the name.
Yeah. But Hobby Lobby is the one out of the three big ones that has a certain politic connected to their owners.
Right.
And doesn't believe in reproductive freedoms because of their religious beliefs, and wants to impose it on their employees.
That's outrageous.
And so because we don't have universal health care where our health care is removed from our employment, we have these problems that arise where we have to see the history of people who own big businesses. Where I might have just as likely shopped at Hobby Lobby before if we didn't have people's politics injected into our workplaces.
Bingo. Well, here's the thing. I always ask Christians when Tim Tebow was, doing his fucking bullshit on the field, interjecting his Christianity and like virtue signaling to all the Christians. Was that shoving Christianity down our throats? And were they offended by that kneeling on the field?
Right.
Because I bet they weren't. Well, in fact, I even said in that thread to the people that were being assholes, I said, I bet you if the original poster had come here and said, I'm so glad this group isn't full of anti-Christian and anti-American comments, that none of the people who were complaining would have complained. Oh, yes, xenophobia is spelled with an X. My mistake. Yep. But none of that is goalpost shifting. You're just a fucking moron.
Yeah. So I kind of want to shift because there's something I wanted to talk to you guys about, because what little news I've managed to keep up with this week is getting more and more disturbing, because like the GOP is in full on, totalitarian takeover mode right now. And I'm only barely being hyperbolic. The voter suppression that they're trying to instigate, and they're doing all these voter recounts and everything, and deliberately, maliciously trying to, I hate the phrase undermine democracy. They're trying to get rid of it. And
they are undermining democracy. Simple as
that.
Well,
they're trying to get rid of it. That's beyond undermining it, in my opinion. That goes past undermining is when you weaken it. Yeah. They're trying to dismantle it, as far as I can see. I mean, maybe I am being hyperbolic. I don't know. But
no, you're not.
It just feels to me like, I don't know. It feels to me like we're walking around sort of like we're sleepwalking, thinking, gosh, we hope this don't happen. But I'm not sure the powers that be seem to grasp the gravity of the situation.
Well, the one thing that gives me a little bit of hope, I got a phone call yesterday from my friend Michelle's kid David, who I've been kind of like surrogate father to on and off over the years. He's in the military. He's an 82nd Airborne, and he actually told me that while obviously there's a lot of right wingers in the Army and in the circles he's in, and he does run into plenty of Trumpers, that there's a bunch of Republican types who really fucking despise the Trumpers and have some not so nice nicknames for them. So that's encouraging. At least there's some people on the right that don't want democracy to go away.
I've met an awful lot of new people since I moved to the U.S. and people that I never would have normally had occasion to mix with in my previous station in life, and a lot of the wealthy people that I have met are very anti-Trump. But I've met almost an equal number of wealthy people who they're not for Trump, but they're sort of politically like, whatever makes me money, man. And it's like, it's to me, I'm just like, I don't know. It's hard for me to absorb that, But I really feel that there's definitely a lot of traditional Republicans who are disgusted with Trump and the whole Trumpism movement, right? But are there enough of those to prevent the actual Republicans from being taken over by being primaried by these fascists?
It's already done. It's already over. That's happened. I mean, basically, whatever ones that are lingering, they're going to be gone in the next cycle. So the takeover, the Trump takeover of the Republican Party is nearing completion.
Here's the thing that really bothers me about that. Number one, obviously everything that represents, but the other thing is, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I get a bit suspicious because I don't think that Trump has the kind of support that a lot of the people in the congressional GOP seem to think that he has. And I mean it like this. Trump got a lot of more votes than any other Republican candidate for president. And that's what he's selling his grift on, right? Is that one fact. But as I've said before in previous jamborees, I think a lot of people voted for Trump, not because they're Trumpers per se, but a lot of people voted for Trump because he was promising that there would be no more lockdowns and everything like that. And people were so sick of that shit that they were so, I'll vote for that then. I think that accounts for a pretty large number of, maybe not, I don't know how many, but a lot. I think there's a lot of people out there who were sick of lockdowns, and that was the language they wanted to hear, and everything else, Yeah,
no, I agree. Now, I want to correct something that Peaceable Kingdom said. Hobby Lobby objected to Obamacare requiring them to contribute. That's how they framed it, but that's not actually how healthcare, employer covered healthcare actually works. So I am an employer and I have an employee health plan. The contribution that I make, now some of it comes out of the employee's salary and some of it that the company covers. But basically it's just another form of compensation. So basically I'm effectively paying the employee extra money so to help cover their healthcare costs. It's over the fence. It goes to so it's not that I'm sponsoring anything. I'm giving the employee extra money that goes toward their thing. It's no different than if I objected, if I just, paid you and more money just flat and made you go buy your own health plan. It's exactly the same thing. The only difference is you as an employee can't possibly buy into as anywhere near as good of a group as I can as an employer. So
it's telling someone how they can spend their own money effectively.
Exactly. It's literally, but they couch it like, oh, you're making me spend. No, it's a lie. It's a fucking lie. Right. I say this as an employer with healthcare plan.
Right. I'll tell you, what is your thoughts though about that? Because you say you think the takeover is complete, Joe. What does that mean in practical terms?
Well, basically, I mean, we see it with basically kicking Cheney out of her leadership position. Obviously, they can't kick her out of Congress, but the fact of the matter is she's going to be primaried when it comes up, and she will lose. So basically, it means that the path to being prominent in the party, or really even remaining in the party, by the time of this next election cycle, will be you swear fealty to the Trump cult, or you're a persona non grata within the party.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but I'm not a fan of Liz Cheney in any way, shape, fashion, or form. She said some smart things, but I used a broken clock metaphor for that.
Yeah.
But anyway, but I mean, as Murkowski in Alaska, she got primaried out of her position, and so she ran as an independent and won.
Right.
You know, so it's not impossible. And I mean, Liz Cheney's the most prominent example of what you're talking about. But there's a lot of people who are going to get primaried in the next cycle. I grant you that. And a lot of the people that are going to get primaried by are going to be Trumpists.
Lisa Murkowski is still in the Republican Party.
Yeah, but she ran as an independent because she wasn't on the Republican ticket. I'm pretty sure she ran against the person who won the primary. Maybe I'm mistaken about that.
I think you're mistaken.
Yeah.
I'll check. I'll look it up while you guys talk.
Yeah, okay. Raven, what's your thoughts on all this?
Don't have any.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly, I wasn't paying attention to the last bit.
All right.
Because Peach posted a video of the baby.
All right. Here's a scoop on Murkowski. So she got reelected in 2016, and she actually won the nomination by a wide margin. Now she's likely to get primaried in 2022. Now she is somebody who I think could probably win as an independent in Alaska, because Democrats are not terribly popular, and she's actually part of an Alaska family dynasty. She basically succeeded her father in the seat. So I think that she will probably remain in the Senate. Although the danger to the Republicans is that, if they keep pushing on her, she's one of the few, unlike what's her name, Collins from Maine. I could see Murkowski actually switching parties and then actually switching to the Democrats just to fuck the Republicans.
Quite honestly, I know it's not going to happen, but I wish that's exactly what they did. I wish that you literally had 10 senators cross the floor so they could keep the 60 majority, right, and screw this upcoming authoritarian movement, because this is their only moment to do it.
Right.
And the problem is that they just don't have the backbone, and that's true about all of these people in the GOP in Congress at the moment. What was it? The other day they had the vote. 35 Republicans voted with the Democrats to investigate the January 6th, and the fact that, I don't know, the media is different to how I remember it. The fact that you can have 175 or whatever Republicans basically support the insurrection by implication, and that's not the biggest fucking story on the TV every single day. It's just taken in stride. Trump has normalized that kind of thing. We aren't outraged by this anywhere near as much as we ought to be. You know what I mean? Because we're numb to it. You guys have to talk for a second. My gal is back, and I'm just going to go say hi.
Yeah. Well, I mean, basically that proved that, as again, that kind of goes to my point that the Republican Party is now the party of autocracy, because they do not want there to be any accountability. Even the people who yelled at the president back then don't want there to be any accountability. They basically want it all to just go away, and so that they can maintain their power. I mean, the good thing is that I was looking at with how independents are viewing this. Independents in general are not happy. It's like 2/3 are anti the Trumpists and about 1/3 are in favor. And now certainly the Republicans will still win in like the heavily red districts, but that doesn't bode well for them for the overall election in 2022. That looks like, as long as the Democrats don't, find a way to fuck it up, which they're very good at, mind you, then the Republicans should actually lose quite a lot of ground.
So I wish that my basic plan for defeating Trumpism was a better plan. because I'm actually questioning whether just wait for him to die and just outlive him is a viable option. Because what's happened, I feel, in all of America, due to like living in a post-Trump era, is nobody ever admits when they're wrong. That one trait of narcissism has spread. Like, say, Matt Gaetz, never going to admit to the wrong things that he did publicly. Never, like, even when there is video evidence of shit happening, people can just deny, and feel like their sheer willpower will bend reality. If they say that they didn't say something, and then a newscaster confronts them directly with the footage of them saying it just the past week, they will deny, and a certain percentage of people will just believe them because they are inspired by that sheer willpower to just be able to tell the newscaster, no, that's not what happened. That thing that you just presented never existed.
Well, the thing is, so many people that actually consume that kind of fucking bullshit are just brain dead as fuck. Like this, Quintica asshole who is brain dead as fuck, who thinks somehow that the ballots in Maricopa County are going to turn out differently because they're looking for fucking bamboo in the fucking ballots. You know what? That disaster that's taking place right now in Maricopa County is going to end up costing them millions and millions of dollars because all of the voting machines now have to be replaced because now they've been tainted by somebody who isn't authorized to be fucking with them. So I mean, Arizona made a huge fucking mistake having this stupid fucking recount. There's no evidence of anything being fucking wrong, and all of the claims that were made by the cyber ninjas so far, they've all been walked back because there ain't shit. There ain't shit. Republicans in Arizona are now outwardly saying that this shit has to end because it's nothing but a nightmare. It's costing them a shit ton of money. So fact that shit. Trump didn't fucking win. Get over it, dumbass.
Yeah, it's fucking stupid. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the leadership in the state is Republican. And they voted for Trump. If they wouldn't, they're not in the tank for the Democrats. But this idea that there's somehow some secret cabal of people who like Trump to sandbag Trump, that's literally the most insane conspiracy theory I've ever heard. And that's even more insane than the flat Earth fucking assholes. It's more insane than the chemtrailers. People who like Trump are out to get him. Or maybe you just fucking lost. Because why? Oh, why? Maybe if you put up the most morally reprehensible individual to ever occupy the presidency, and that's saying something considering that we had Andrew fucking Jackson as president once, maybe that's why you lost.
There are more registered Democrats in the U.S. than there are registered Republicans. I'm not saying that most of the country is leftist or liberal or Democrat, just registered voters. There are more registered Democrats than there are Republicans. There's a whole shit ton of people from all over the political spectrum that are not affiliated with a party, but they're registered voters. It doesn't make any fucking sense to think that if the majority of people who are already registered to vote are already registered to vote against a Republican, it makes no sense at all to think the Republican lost, therefore there was cheating going on.
Right.
That's just mathematically fucking ridiculous. No.
Well, I mean, Trump started planting that seed way back in 2015, or maybe early 2016, before the 2016 election. He was planting that seed about the 2016 election, that he was thinking, this is not going to be fair, and I'm going to have to challenge it. And hey, I won. I guess I won't challenge it then. But after that, he'd been rattling on about how unsafe mail-in voting would be for literally 3 years at least. He's been planting the seed, and the fact that Liz Cheney got chased out for stating a basic truth shows how depraved these people are and how low they've fallen and how far we have to climb up.
the truth has no value for the GOP. It just has no value. I mean, it's like the mail-in voting. I mean, it's just like, here's a that's been danced on a million times. We've only been doing mail-in voting for 60 fucking years. I think we know how to do it now.
Since the Civil War, there's been
Yeah.
mail-in voting.
Yeah, and some states do that as the primary means of voting for
Hello?
years. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. And it works great. In Colorado, I'm pretty sure they had 94% of registered voters vote in the previous election
Nice.
because they send them to your house and it's very easy to vote.
Well, what gets me about they're like, oh, well, they're not verifying signatures. Yeah, they are. You think is when you register to vote, you have to sign a registration card, and when the votes go in, they compare your signature on your mailed-in ballot to the signature on record. So there you go.
Well, I mean, that's a ridiculous claim anyway, because there were a whole lot of ballots all over the country that weren't counted or had to be cured because the signatures didn't match, because people's signatures change over time.
Sure.
So
when this whole effort that's going on at the moment, where they're doing these recounts, they're going to do another one in Georgia pretty soon. They're still doing this one. It's been going on for more than a month in Arizona, for fuck's sake. And when they did the recounts originally, it only took them like 3 days. So isn't it just automatically nefarious and suspicious that it's taking them this long, that they're handling actual legal ballots and possibly manipulating them in any number of unknown ways? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, they've already been warned by the federal government that they are basically in violation of U.S. law when it comes to the handling of the ballots and the voting machines.
Right.
And basically the state had, replied, so what? Big fucking deal, It's almost like a dare for Biden to do something about it.
I think that voting should always be.
Hang on a second, Paul. I'm sorry. Hey, dipshit, you don't have to be an expert at signature motherfucking analysis to be able to compare two samples. All you gotta do. Do they look alike? Do they look alike? Yes or no? You don't have to be a fucking analyst.
Well, here's the other thing about that. If you actually vote in person, that's all they fucking do anyway. Is you write, like over here when I vote, I write my name down in front of the guy, and they look at the signature in the book and the one I just fucking wrote. So it's the same. So if that doesn't need someone who has expertise in signature analysis, then the mail-in shouldn't. Dipshit.
Right. And it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't know. I mean, checking the signature thing. What I want to know when it comes to the recounts is how do they maintain the because when I voted by mail in Colorado, my signature thing was separate to my ballot. So I'm not sure how they're
not matching any signatures. They're not doing that. They're looking for bamboo.
Apparently, which is, but are they going to do that as well in Georgia and Michigan and Pennsylvania?
I don't think it's going to get that far. I really don't. I think it's all going to be. Well, that's what they want to do. They want to do the entire country. It's what they want to do because, everybody knows how everybody loves Donald Trump somehow.
Well, it's really funny, though. You notice that they're not going for every county, just the ones where they think they can pick up votes. Which was Al Gore's big mistake when, in the beginning, at least, when Al Gore was, and rightly so, that was a complaint the Republicans had about Al Gore because he was only canvassing the counties he thought could help him, not a statewide canvass. And so that was his fuck up. So now they're doing the same thing they thought was anathema, way back.
In my opinion, Al Gore's fuck up was losing his own state of Tennessee.
No. I mean,
if he won Tennessee, he would have won the presidency without Florida.
Yeah, but the whole thing of like winning your state, like that used to be the metric, but that doesn't really work anymore. If you're a liberal guy from a hard red state or vice versa, you're not going to win. So you're not going to win your state. I don't think that's relevant.
In a post-Trump era, unfortunately, the way that the psyche of the country has gone, Al Gore's big mistake was conceding defeat, because that was the point where he ceded all of his political power and ability to influence the rest of the party going forward. And as you can see, Trump never conceded defeat, and he still has a considerable stranglehold on his own party. And if he had conceded, that stranglehold might not be as strong. So
That's a good point.
you know, I don't think that it was a weakness on Al Gore's part, because I do think that he did the right thing in respecting the office and not causing, say, an insurrection on the Capitol building over the fact that it was that close. You know,
I just want to point out to again to my best friend in the chat there, Q. Nobody on this panel brought up signature analysis. We said that they compare signatures, but that's not signature analysis. You brought up signature analysis. So again, for the 5th time, I think, in this session, shove it up your ass. You're a dishonest piece of shit. You're a liar. And you don't really know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't really understand why Quinton comes here in the first place. I mean, it's just a troll, I suppose.
Yeah,
it's
that's
just to get
exactly
the
it.
reaction that he just got out of me. That's the purpose.
That's trolling for you.
And it's 2:30 almost in the afternoon here. I don't have anything else to do, so I might as well give it to him.
And it's not. And
It isn't equivocation, you dumbass. You don't even know what that word means.
Right. Fucking.
So I don't even know that there's enough signature analysts in the world, because that's a very niche occupation. I don't know that there's enough signature analysts to look over every signature for every ballot. So having lay people just compare on a lay level the signatures is the good first filter, and then maybe have some at the end signature analysts.
Well, that's the thing.
Look at the ones that are very disparate, but we do have enough notary publics that have seen signatures and compared signatures that we might be able to say every election, call up every notary public and tell them that it's their civic duty to work at this rate to compare all the signatures.
Well,
we don't do that sort of thing because we're at this ridiculous level of trusting signatures.
Well, the whole point is that we don't do anything different with mail-in ballots than what we do with in-person ballots. Right. So the whole argument is specious, because it's one thing if we were treating the ballots differently. I could say, okay, well, maybe we should make sure we treat the mail-in ballots the same, but we do. So. In fact, if anything, it's harder. Like when I sent my ballot in, my actual ballot goes in one envelope. That goes in a second envelope, and that and so I got to sign that envelope and all that, and I have to put a whole bunch of information, which I don't have to. I don't have to put my address. I don't have to put a whole bunch of shit when I show up. I just say, here, that's my name, and they find me in the book, and I sign the thing, and I go, yeah, that looks like to be the same signature, and that's it. I don't have to show an ID in person. None of that crap. So I actually have to provide more information in New Jersey, at least, for a mail-in ballot than I do for an in-person ballot. So again, it's just a specious argument.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, all these voter suppression laws that the Republican legislatures are trying to bring in, and they're trying to rush it all before 2022. And I mean, what if it works, guys?
Well, I mean, it's something we have to worry about. But I just have to address this. No, no one equivocated, because you were the one who specifically said signature analysis, not us, dickhead.
Right. You were the one that was using a term in an ambiguous way, and then later trying to say that it meant something completely other than what it would have meant in the original context. So you were the one that was equivocating. So once again, fuck you.
Yeah, basically what I found anymore when I hear an accusation from a right winger, it's an admission. It's an admission. Yeah. It's literally admission.
Projection.
They just fucking project. I mean, like as I said, each one of them can run like a 15 theater movie multiplex. They project so much. Just shove the films up their ass, and then they can project it onto the wall.
So I don't understand. Like everybody, like Vegas, can we just get voter ID, please? Like, okay, number one, why? I mean, you have to show ID when you register to vote. Like I've already proved who I was. I've already done that. So why do I have to get another ID to do something I've already done? When you register to vote, you have identity. Then from there on, all you have to do is compare signatures. So I don't understand, what is this big fucking deal? What is big need about having
Raven?
What?
I want you to prove your identity until you can't, so that you can't vote anymore.
Yeah. Isn't it ridiculous? I mean, it is just it's so the argument died, but the argument there is no argument anyway, though, Vegas, because
My
it's already a
goalpost-
ridiculous argument.
My goal is I want enough people to have to prove their identity to the point where at least half of them lose their right to vote by trying to prove their identity, and then I'll be okay with it.
No,
Obviously, I think it's prudent. I think it's prudent
Right.
to make sure that someone is allowed to vote. You know, they're old enough or
But that's
whatever.
what the registration book is
But
for.
after that, register. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. To me,
Like, okay.
everybody born in America has the right to vote.
Has the right to
Simple
vote.
as. And I think that
Right.
I think you should be issued if you need a voter ID, get it at birth. Give everyone one at birth.
So, I mean, here's the thing, though. You register to vote, right? You register to vote. Certain at 18 years old, you register to vote, and you send in the information, and you have to prove your identity. You do all of that at the beginning, right? So then, when election day comes and you go to vote, they've got this great big book, and they look up your name in the book, and they compare your signature with the signature that's in the book from when you proved who you were already, and if they match, you're good to go. You've proven your ID, and you've proven that's like if somebody were to try to steal your identity to vote, they would have to be able to learn how to write like you so they can steal your signature. They would have to know where your voting location is. They would, it just doesn't make any fucking sense that somebody's going to go through the trouble to steal your vote unless they're living in the same house as you. And you know what I mean? It's ridiculous. So to keep going on and banging on about cards and ID cards, it just makes no sense. And to just cave, like you go, oh, so the argument can just die. So just cave to a ridiculous demand just to stop the argument. That only sets you up to keep doing that over and over and over again. Because once you
Paying
cave
off
on
someone
one
for
thing, you're
bribes.
going to want to cave on everything.
Well, here's the thing. Then, well, first off, if they're going to give a free ID, I wouldn't object to that. But the problem is that that's not what they've been offering.
Right.
So here's the thing. Then, all the states that want to have voter ID, why don't they issue you a voter ID card when you register? That could be part of the process. But they don't fucking do that because they don't want to. They'd rather have the argument, like Rob was saying. They'd rather. It's just like. The abortion issue, like when George W. Bush was president, a lot of us thought he was going to try to do a lot of things to get rid of abortion. He didn't. Why? Because they didn't want to get rid of abortion. They need that wedge issue. They need that wedge issue to get people to go out and vote.
No, Q, it's not a straw man pile of crap. What you just said is a straw man pile of crap. Once again, you're making accusations for something that you yourself are guilty of.
Yeah.
No, nobody made a straw man except for you. Nobody equivocated except for you. You're an asshole. I mean, you're just an asshole.
Well, and also, if the DNC is this criminal organization that stole the election, provide evidence thereof.
Right.
Right.
I mean, Trump's legal team, his entire team, in over 60 court cases, could not once show any evidence of any wrongdoing that cost him the election. Most of the time, they didn't even claim that there was any wrongdoing.
That's right.
So,
in fact, when asked by judges multiple times if this case was about fraud, they said no because they knew if they said yes, they could be held accountable for perjury and they could potentially lose their legal licenses. So they didn't do that.
Yeah, it'd be contempt of
there is
court,
evidence.
wouldn't it?
You need spoon fed to you. Fuck you. Right. There's evidence. There's so much evidence that they failed to show it to every single court.
Grab a spoon, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Grab a spoon, motherfucker. Go get a spoon. Where is it? Feed me. You don't dare, because if you actually make a claim, we can actually go and look it up. Corrupt judges.
Judges.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. All those Trump-appointed judges were all corrupt.
Yeah, and actually, that's true. Some of them were Trump-appointed judges.
A majority of them were.
So
Yeah, it shouldn't matter who appoints a judge. I know that doesn't
Yeah.
really pertain in the real world, but it shouldn't really matter. You know, I was brought up to think it didn't matter, and maybe once upon a time it didn't, but I don't know. I don't like to romanticize the past too much when it comes to stuff like that.
Well, Vegas, it rings true. Is it really? Yes. Well, again, if the states that want to have voter ID were to issue voter IDs when you register, then those states would have voter ID. They wouldn't even need to pass a law. All they would have to do is say, hey, as part of the voter registration process, we're going to issue you an ID. But they don't. I wonder why.
I'm pretty sure the first time I ever voted, which was 1980, when I registered to vote, they gave me a registration card that I could show that I had registered to vote. It was literally like a perforated card that was attached. They like ripped off the book when I registered. You know, really cheap, but I'm not sure if that's done anymore or not.
Okay, here's an article from December 14th. Trump's own judges rebuke his voter fraud claims. 9 judges, either appointed by Trump or on his Supreme Court shortlist, have declined to bolster his claim. And that was in December, and there were more after that. So you're fucking wrong on its face. Prima facie evidence that you're a fucking either a liar or a moron or both.
or both.
It's a troll. It's just a troll, you know.
I vote for both.
Yeah, I think you're right.
You know. But no, I am quite worried that I have this whole like, you know, what if it works? What if they get away with it? You know, they almost got away with the 6th of January. I mean, literally by 90 seconds. If they were 90 seconds faster, they might have got away with it, you know, and that's a terrifying thought, you know. So I don't know, I'm a bit nervous about the future because I don't have a lot of faith in powers that be to actually check this stuff.
What's a lefty trope, Vegas? You know, so a little. I mean, explain to me why the states that want voter ID that want to pass these voter ID laws don't issue voter ID when with your registration.
He might be referring to what Peaceful Kingdom said about it's easier to buy a gun than it is to vote.
In some states, that's true,
and that is true in some states.
It's not true in New Jersey, but
No.
But thankfully,
When something becomes a trope, why is it then easily discountable? Just because it's a liberal talking point that comes up often?
and
Is that the reason why you would discount it as having any merit?
Yeah,
Because
that's
we
the
say a
kind of
lot.
thinking.
We tend to center around the truth a lot. Are you going to
Like
say
it.
that all the things that we're seeking out as truths are then false because when we find these truths, we like talking about them a lot? Just because we say it a lot doesn't mean that it's wrong.
Well,
I like this. The DNC has a long history of stealing elections. Read a history book. Yeah, okay. Okay, that makes sense.
Show me the history book that's in.
Yes. Please give us a bibliography.
Read a history book.
My God.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the Waterstones and look through the section on where the history is about how the Democrats stole the elections. That is going to be like a book about this.
So Vegas, it is true that right wingers are less concerned about legitimate elections and more concerned about keeping minorities, which is why the whole thing about giving people food and water. What possible protection of the election is there preventing people from handing out water or giving people a snack so they can stay on the 8-hour line that they're forced to stay on to because in the minority districts there are more voting places were closed in minority districts than in non-minority districts.
And it's always in southern states or it's always in blue states. I'm sorry, red states. Always in Republican states. Always
Right.
They shut down polling places in minority communities, so they create long lines. They want those lines. They want them to be long because they want people to give up, and then they make
That
it even
doesn't just
harder
happen
because
in red
people were
states,
having
though.
people
Raven,
were having
honestly,
to bring food.
That doesn't just happen in red states. So, I mean, in New York, they had the problem in 2020 about super long lines, and it's voter suppression no matter what color the state is. You know what I mean? I mean, that whether it's a deliberate policy or not, I can't speak to that point as
But the
far as
state of
New
New
York
York
is.
doesn't have the state of New York doesn't have counties that were like the majority of the people in a certain county are of any particular race. I mean, other than
Okay,
white.
fair enough. Yeah.
So they don't have that. But in states down south where they're going to have, where they don't have, I mean, they have counties, but they do things by precinct, like in Louisiana, right?
Parish.
They'll have entire areas where the majority of the population, where it's like 80% black, no voting booths, no
That's
polls,
just
no
outrageous.
polling stations. New York didn't do anything like that. I
Right.
mean, it's
Okay.
possible they didn't have enough polling places, but
Right.
there's a difference
That's my
between.
thing. They didn't have enough polling
Yeah.
places.
Well,
Yeah.
because the thing is, basically, in Podunk, New York, it's like 98% white. So, and places where that are a high minority population in New York City, which are controlled by liberals. So the liberals are not preventing people from voting.
Right. So it's like there are places. There was I don't remember what state it was in, but there was they closed. Wait a minute, right here in New Jersey. I don't, because that's how bad it is. I don't remember. But I mean, they had no, it was out in Colorado. I think it was in Colorado. They had a polling place had closed, so they had it was apparently it was a mostly Mexican community, and they closed like the only polling place. So they had them all go to a different county. It was like 20 miles away or something. They had to drive to get there. And when they got to the address that they said was the new polling place, there was no polling there because the place was like under construction and it was actually the wrong address. So like you had to go through this entire fucking maze to get to where you had to vote. And it wasn't even in your own county because they closed your counties.
Yeah, and I actually have to address something Green Machine said that burns my ass. Okay, if you want to make the argument that the Democrats tried to make things disadvantageous to the candidates they didn't like, okay, but that's not what a stealing an election is, and no one was preventing people selectively from voting. No one was changing votes or throwing out votes or any of the bullshit that the Republicans are alleging here. So, no, just no.
Well, and all the instances of fraud that I've seen have been Republicans voting for their dead wife or other relatives.
Or how about in North Carolina, they caught a candidate for office that was cooking the books, and all they did was just have a new election. Instead, they didn't arrest the guy. They didn't make him ineligible for running for office. I'm like, look, if you get caught cheating, like strictly, like literally caught cheating, you should not be allowed to run for that office. You should just fucking lose.
Which party in the 19th century had literacy tests again? Actually, it wasn't the party that had literacy tests, is it? I mean, it was entire states.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're going to go all the way back. You have to go back to the 19th century. Really?
To make a point.
You want to completely ignore the fact that the positions of the political parties today are the exact opposite of what they were then. I mean, that's completely. You're going to tell other people to read a fucking history book,
it's hilarious. I mean, basically, if you ask them if they want to agree with with these modern shitheads, if they want to agree with the Republican Party of 1910 or 1906 or something like that, I bet you they don't.
Hell, even the Republican Party of the 1950s. I mean, the Republican Party of the 1950s was pretty damn liberal compared to now.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's fucking stupid. And it's like, and they'll say, oh, I love when they'll say, oh, well, it was the Democrats was the party of the KKK, which is true in the 1800s, but yet but they're the same ones out there with KKK flags and Nazi flags. And it's like, well, then, okay, well, then you should be voting Democrat. If you're for those things and you think that's the party of the Democrats, you should be voting for Democrats then.
So, I mean, it's, the one thing that was said, and I know, Joe, you're not going to agree with me, but there's one thing in the chat really that's been said that I really agree with. Bernie got robbed.
Well, if you want to feel that way, but again, as far as well, other thing too, what I think is kind of hilarious is that if they did in the primary, what the Democrats did in the primary had nothing to do with the ballots or the voting places or anything, because those are not controlled by the parties. Those are controlled by the state's boards of elections. You ignorant fuck.
Right. So yes, they right. What I still think
by
that they
the, by,
were
by,
supposed
by,
to.
and by the way, that's fine if you believe it. But my whole point too is if the Democrats were so good and so crafty, then why did they end up with a 50-50 split in the Senate? Why did Trump win it all in 2016?
Right.
Dumbass.
Why do Republicans control 34 state houses?
Bingo.
It might not be 34 anymore. It was 34 a couple years ago, but I'm
Yeah,
not sure what the number is
It's
at
like
the moment.
it's like 29 now, but still
29, right? Yeah. But they were like 1 or 2 states away from being able to amend the Constitution if they wanted to, and that would have been kind of scary.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, the Democrats are so good at stealing elections. Yeah, that the House of Representatives is like on a razor's edge at this point now.
Right. Yeah, they actually
that's-
lost seats.
That's how good that's how good the Democrats are at this stuff.
Tankies. Oh, fuck you, dude.
Anyway, let's leave the chat guys out. All right.
I'm
I
sorry.
gotta
I keep going back
wrap
there
the
because
show up at 3 hours, at least the live chat. Anyway, I would like to finish on a brighter note.
so wait, before you go there and finish on anything, everybody scroll back up through the chat, probably about an hour, I guess, back. And there's a link. Click on that
I'll
link
put it back on
Don't-
again.
and donate money to me.
You
please.
can't scroll that far back. I'll put it on
Is-
again. Hang on. There we go.
There you go. Or not. You know, I'm not going to twist anybody's arm. You know.
Feel free. Coerce. Okay, actually, that's an interesting point that I'd like to discuss for the next 10 minutes or so. What's the difference between coercion and persuasion?
Degree and
And
methods.
how do you define that degree, though?
Well, see, coercion has some threat of negative consequences like force or withholding.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think like, see, the way I see it is persuasion is where you're convincing somebody to
But you're
do it
convincing them
your
because you
way.
want them to do what you want them to do. You coerce
right.
someone because you want them to do what you want them to do.
but it's
so-
how
So,
you
but
do
here's
it.
the thing: it's the will of the person. Like you persuade somebody because you want them to agree or you want them to go along. You want them to do what you want them to do. When you coerce, that's more forceful. You want them to do what they don't want to do, and you don't want you don't care if they're convinced or not. You want to force them to do it.
That's right. Easy way to look at it is this: persuasion is consensual, coercion is not.
So
Think about that.
So therefore, the differences might not be in the presentation. The difference might be in the perception of
to a
what.
degree. To a
Right.
degree. But yeah, because that's the thing though. If I do it because I think I have to, if I'm acceding to you, that's not consent. That's something else, and I'm being coerced. But if you've made an argument that is cogent and attractive, and I change my mind in your favor, that's persuasion. If I go, oh shit, I better do it, or I'll lose my job, or this person will punch me, or my wife will leave me, or my dog will bite my leg, or whatever. Or they'll shoot my dog. That's coercion. Those are obvious forms of coercion. But
So you could say that persuasion is when you exceed because of you desire a positive outcome, where coercion you exceed because you fear a negative outcome.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
If we were looking at things in terms of reward and punishment in a behaviorist perspective, persuading should always work better than coercion and have longer lasting effects. As soon as you stop threatening somebody with harmful effects with coercion, they would likely revert to their previous behavior. But if you keep rewarding someone instead of punishing the behavior you don't want, if you just reward the behavior you do want, then those effects would last longer. They might do it a couple times without being rewarded.
Yeah. I'll be right back. I hit the men's room.
Okay. Okay.
In terms of effectiveness, that's the difference.
What? Hang on. I don't know how to do that, Raven.
I don't either.
Okay. That's a bit
All I
better.
know is what you said in the chat, and then when I go and I refresh, it doesn't post. So I don't know what
Okay. I don't know.
I
Maybe
don't
it
know
takes
if
time. Maybe it takes time to clear or something. I don't know.
maybe I have no idea either. It's just I
Yeah.
don't know. That's why I was saying just to make sure that you've like completed the process, because yeah.
I thought I finished everything and I shut the window, so I can't. I don't know how to get back to it. If
Yeah,
if
I
I
mean,
get
if you
back,
click on the link in the thing, you can see where.
I'll see where. Yeah, I'll see where it goes. Because just so the viewers know what we're talking about, I made a donation to Raven's coming out fund.
As did I,
I like the way that was.
and I never recommend to anything that I don't myself
And thank you to
donate
both
to.
of you. And Vegas also, I'm shouting him out here in front of everybody, but he actually donated towards it, and I was really surprised to see that. So, thank you, Vegas.
I'm just going to try it again, and if you get it twice, we'll have to deal with that later. Basically, yeah, not a problem, no. Okay, so I'm going to do that again. I don't know what the hell might have happened.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, I encourage people to at least give it a look, give it some consideration. I'll do that after we go live, after we're done live.
One of the
But
things
yeah,
that
give it some
I ask,
consideration.
yeah, and I appreciate that, and I ask people too, like at the very least, look at it, and if it's not something that you want to, or can't afford to help support, that's good, that's great. I mean, everybody's got their own thing. It doesn't upset me, but I do ask people to share if they can.
Sure.
Because you know what I mean? They might know people who would be happy to give. So
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Well, hey, on that note, I think let's wrap it up live anyways, and I'll see you boys in the after chat and girls in the after chat. I'll get there. It'll take me a minute. You know what I mean? Anyway, so I want to thank almost everybody in the chat for sticking with us for this amount of time.
well, you can thank Q also. I mean, I think the yelling at them is
I'm just having a
entertaining.
laugh.
Yeah, yelling at them is entertaining, I think.
Yeah. I mean, people constantly ask, how come I don't kick him? How come I don't kick him? And so far hasn't crossed the red lines that get you kicked. Being stupid doesn't get you kicked. I had before.
That's why Vegas is still here.
Damn.
Yeah. So I completely lost my train of thought.
Oh, well, anyway, so we're signing off, I guess.
Yeah, we're going to say goodbye. I was just saying goodbye to everybody there in the chat and thanking people for sort of hanging in there. Now afterwards, though, I do want to speak to y'all because I'm going to be taking a break because I'm going to the UK and I'll be gone for the whole of June. So I want to have some kind of survival strategy if anyone wants to keep doing jamborees while I'm gone, because I think it would be good if we could keep it up, So we'll get on that. And so say goodbye to everybody in the chat, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Eat a bag of shit, Q.